The person I was is being worn away by the one I must become. The weight of what I did to them is a stone I can never put down. Now the only thing holding our world together is starting to split. ILINFENG want to die? His furious shout was echoing throughout people's hearts like the waves of a tsunami. The words, "I want to die," were so arrogant. He had been expelled from the clan, and at this moment, he was looking down on everyone. The one everyone used to call a piece of trash was, at this moment, looking down on the clan and mocking them as if they meant nothing. "I, Lin Feng, the piece of trash who was expelled from the clan," Lin Feng kept joking. In the past, during the competition of Yangzhou City, he had also said things that sounded insane at the time, but his power shocked everyone. Back then, he was already much stronger than Lin Qian. Lin Qian could not rival him. Besides, these days, even though Lin Qian had broken through to the 4th Ling Qi layer, Lin Feng had just killed the 9th elder who was at the 5th Ling Qi layer with a single attack. How strong was he really? Could Lin Qian rival such a monster? Lin Feng was the most outstanding disciple of the Lin clan, but such a genius had been expelled. "Why is nobody speaking?" said Lin Feng. The crowd only stared at him. They all remained absolutely silent. Lin Feng couldn't help but keep mocking them. "Before I arrived, were you not all flattering Lin Qian and Lin Ba Dao? Were you not all just criticizing my father and me to gain his good graces? Now I am standing before you, but each and every single person here has suddenly become deaf and mute. If I am a piece of trash, you are a bunch of shameless, low-life, worthless cultivators." Lin Feng's voice was piercing through the silent atmosphere. Everyone's faces were turning bright red. They were looking at Lin Feng with killing intent in their eyes. "Your father and you are the same traitors who don't respect the elders of the clan. You are both filthy animals." At that moment, a furious voice interrupted. It came from Lin Feng's third uncle, Lin Hao Ran. When he saw Lin Feng, he remembered his son, who had been crippled by Lin Feng and became filled with jealousy, but this jealousy quickly turned into hatred. Lin Feng was stupefied. A sharp expression filled his eyes and he glared at Lin Hao Ran. A traitor, his father and he were animals. "Incredibly, it is possible to reach such a high level of shamelessness," said Lin Feng coldly, and then added, "Back in the past, my father and I never offended you, but because you wanted his position as head of the clan, you humiliated me and threatened my father. You wanted to replace him as the clan head using despicable methods. Have you ever thought about the fact that he was your brother? After that, because you created an opportunity to reach your goal, the respectable elder attacked and injured my father. Then you expelled us from the Lin clan. You are really shameless. Besides, during the annual competition of Yangzhou City, I started to reveal outstanding talent, but you were afraid of my talent, which is why you tried to kill me. Did you think about our blood relations at that time? Now you're calling me a traitor? Why is that? You attack your own brother, the head of your clan, and you dare to call other people traitors. You chose to replace my father with someone else. I, Lin Feng, have nothing to do with scum like you. There is only humiliation to gain from associating with you. I, Lin Feng, have returned. Lin Hao Ran, if you criticize my father again, I will kill you." When Lin Feng said those words, an immense quantity of sword chi whistled through the atmosphere. Lin Feng looked like a powerful sword at that moment. He was infinitely sharp, dazzling, brutal, and aggressive. Lin Feng surprisingly dared to threaten his third uncle, threatening to kill him. That was a huge humiliation for Lin Hao Ran, to be threatened by Lin Feng in public like that. He coldly said, "Your father is an animal, and the son of an animal is an animal, so you are both filthy animals." How could Lin Hao Ran be intimidated by a little boy to the extent that he wouldn't dare to speak? Boom! Lin Hao Ran's words reached Lin Feng's ears. An invisible pressure suddenly fell onto everyone's shoulders. Lin Feng was spinning around and seemed to have transformed into a sword, an extremely sharp one. An incredible sword energy overwhelmed the entire atmosphere. The crowd was gasping in astonishment. How powerful! It seemed like they had underestimated Lin Feng. He seemed to be much stronger than all of them. The invisible sword energy was surrounding the entire crowd. They were all fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He had become so monstrously strong. Lin Hao Ran's heart was pounding. Nobody knew that the energy which was now oppressing his body was painfully sharp. He was controlling himself, but his facial expression was changing drastically. His heart was pounding. Panic-stricken, he was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. How strong, that sword chi is way too strong, Lin Hao Ran thought. How strong had Lin Feng become? Lin Hao Ran was absolutely terrified and regretted what he just said to Lin Feng. "Die! shouted Lin Feng furiously. The invisible sword energy turned into a sharp sword. Lin Feng jumped into the air. It seemed like his entire body transformed into a sword, an extremely sharp and devastating sword. The crowd was dumbstruck to the extent that they forgot to try to stop Lin Feng. Even if they did see him coming, they couldn't afford to take the risk of getting in his way. An incredibly brilliant and resplendent light filled the atmosphere. There was no sword, only the light glow given from sword energy. Lin Ran felt hopeless, and his facial expression gradually dropped, and blood started to pour from a hole that had been pierced between his eyebrows. One strike and his life had ended. As before, only one strike. Lin Feng moved back to his original position on the stage. There was nothing in his hand, but sword chi was still present in the atmosphere. That incredibly daring young man confused everyone in the crowd. Where was his sword? He was such a genius, yet he had been expelled from the clan. At that moment, he had come back to regain his dignity. "You killed your third uncle," said Lin Ba Dao while looking at the corpse. He was looking at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way with killing intent in his eyes. "Third uncle," said Lin Feng while laughing, and then added, "Lin Ba Dao, you and Lin Ran, have you ever acted like my uncles?" Lin Ba Dao was stupefied. He and Lin Ran had indeed plotted against Lin Feng's father. Lin Feng had never been like a nephew for them. "You have never regarded me as your nephew. You always regarded me as a piece of trash and humiliated me. You expelled me from the clan and even tried to kill me. At that moment, you never thought that you were my uncle, right? Now that I have killed him, you just now remember that he was my uncle. Lin Ba Dao, don't you think that you are being ridiculous?" Lin Feng said mockingly and continued. "Besides, now I am no longer a member of the Lin clan. If anyone dares to insult my father, I will kill them." Once again, Lin Feng was openly threatening everyone. His words were extremely harsh. At that moment, Lin Feng's words were like sharp swords. Amongst the people of the Lin clan, many were regretting that Lin Feng had been expelled from the clan. If he had been in the Lin clan, he would have been much more prestigious than Lin Kaian. However, everybody remained silent. The atmosphere was horrifyingly silent. Lin Feng's expression looked like he wanted to burst into laughter. He said, "Now, the cowardly atmosphere is contagious in the Lin clan. There is only a bunch of little people left who don't know how to do anything but unceasingly flatter Lin Ba Dao, the clan head. None of you has any strength of character, and the clan has no future. This is ridiculous and sad. Lin Ba Dao, this is the result created from you becoming the clan head." When Lin Feng finished talking, everybody was astonished. They realized that what Lin Feng said was the truth. At that moment, he was standing on the fighting stage, and nobody could rival him. Everyone remained silent. If Lin Hai had been there, he would have been a source of inspiration, even though he did not show himself often. He didn't resemble Lin Ba Dao. The people of the Lin clan, when they heard Lin Feng's making fun of them, all felt humiliated. "Lin Ba Dao, in the past, you plotted against my father and me to make us leave the clan. Now I am back to reclaim our dignity and honor on the fighting stage. Lin Ba Dao, can you act like a real man for once in your cowardly life and join me on the fighting stage?" Lin Feng was challenging Lin Ba Dao. Lin Ba Dao looked uncertain. Lin Feng, who had been expelled by him, surprisingly challenged him. How strong was he? The crowd looked at Lin Ba Dao. Lin Ba Dao slowly stood up, but suddenly heard Lin Kaian shout, "Father, don't fight against him." The crowd was stupefied and looked at Lin Kaian. They only saw Lin Kaian was unceasingly shaking her head and stopping her father. Lin Kaian wanted to prevent her father from fighting against Lin Feng. When Lin Feng arrived, he challenged Lin Kaian. Lin Kaian had not even considered fighting against Lin Feng. Could it be that she knew his real strength? Did Lin Kaian know where Lin Feng had been this whole time? Did she also know his real strength? "Traitor!" shouted a voice which filled the atmosphere. A silhouette was rushing through the air. He looked majestic. Many people were delighted to see the silhouette appear. It was the respectable elder Lin Rui. In the past, he injured Lin Hai and also contributed to Lin Feng and Lin Hai's expulsion from the clan. Now, he was showing himself again. Lin Feng was definitely going to die. "Respectable elder?" All the members of the Lin clan were slightly bowing in front of Lin Rui, who was descending from the sky. His voice was ice cold, and he said, "The son of the traitor has come back. Everybody hurry up and kill him. You have to kill any traitors that enter our territory." Everyone, they had to capture him together. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Ba Dao, however, immediately nodded and said, "Members of the Lin clan, listen to the order, kill Lin Feng." When Lin Ba Dao finished talking, Many people started to reluctantly walk towards the fighting stage. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd and a demonic smile appeared on his face. Together, everyone against him, so they wanted an unfair fight, right? At the Nulan clan, Lin Feng had not personally fought. Using his authority, he had controlled everything with only his words. However, he had gone to the Lin clan for a different reason. He wanted to regain his honor and dignity. This time, he wanted to regain his honor on the fighting stage, not using his status and authority. But at the moment the Lin clan wanted to attack him, the whole clan against him. Lin Feng laughed, gazed towards the sky, and shouted order. "What's going on? What's happening?" The members of the Lin clan were stupefied. Suddenly they heard a rumbling noise fill the atmosphere, but it was coming from every direction. It seemed like there was an earthquake and the ground was trembling. Boom, 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 boom. The incredibly loud booms filled the atmosphere. It seemed like the buildings were about to collapse from the vibrations. Someone was coming to attack the Lin clan. They were destroying the barricades in their district. The crowd was shaking. The sounds were moving closer with each second. The noises spread throughout the atmosphere along with the thumping of everyone's heartbeat. It sounded as if there was a stampede of thousands upon thousands of cavalry charging at full speed and were approaching from the four corners of the Lin clan district. They immediately forced entry into the Lin clan's district and galloped towards the crowd. "Respectable elder!" The crowd looked around and looked at the majestic, respectable elder. They were panicking. It seemed like an extremely heavy chi had fallen from the sky and landed on them. It was unceasing and getting nearer and nearer to the crowd. The crowd was in pain as the chi filling the atmosphere was so sharp that it could cut. They felt like they were suffocating under the intense pressure. The respectable elder, Lin Rui, was frowning. He could also feel the extremely strong chi moving towards them. Besides, he could tell that armored horses were charging towards them from all directions. How come so much cavalry were coming to the Lin clan? "Look over there," shouted someone in the crowd. The crowd looked at the north of the area. Immediately after, red silhouettes appeared in the distance. Red horses, red armor, how domineering and imposing. That was an entire army of Kai Zai cavalry. They were charging towards them. The people's hearts were racing. The people of the Lin clan were dumbstruck. How was that possible? Why would an extremely strong army of armored cavalry come to the Lin clan? "There are some over there as well," shouted the terrified crowd. There was an army to the south as well. And over there, the Kai Zai cavalry were coming from the east, from the west, from everywhere. Everybody was surrounded by Kai Zai troops. It was an endless sea of red. It was a magnificent and terrifying sight. The people's heart were violently shaking. They were all suffering in silence. There was only the sound of the cavalry approaching. The crowd was just blankly staring at that whole scene. There were even some short moments when they had blackouts from the panic. That was an army, an extremely strong army. That army seemed to be endless, as if there were millions of them. Besides, all of them had piercingly strong gazes and released brutally strong chi. That army must be painted red from the blood of their enemies. When the crowd sensed the brutally strong chi, their hearts started beating even faster. A blood-red army had appeared at Lin clan during their annual meeting and was encircling them. If the army wanted to annihilate the Lin clan, it would be as easy as wiping away dust. Who are they? Why has such a powerful army come to the Lin clan? Everybody was absolutely astonished. None of them thought that there could be a relation between the extremely strong army and the young man standing on the fighting stage. They didn't dare to think about such a terrifying thought, not even in their worst nightmares. Even though Lin Feng had just shouted order, they had already removed that from their minds. They had other things to worry about, and the crowd was completely focused on the powerful army. That strong and powerful army had encircled them. There were some horses moving out from the crowd. They were probably high-ranking personnel in the army. The members of the Lin clan were all moving aside, not daring to obstruct their path. They were surrounding the fighting stage, but they all gathered, facing Lin Feng. Lin Feng raised his hands, and the high-ranking personnel moved towards Lin Feng. "That fool, is he tired of living?" The crowd was cursing at Lin Feng in their hearts. He was surprisingly still standing on the stage. They just hoped that he wouldn't get involved. At that moment, the cavalry stopped at the edge of the fighting stage and glanced at the crowd. Immediately, everybody's heart started pounding. These people's facial expressions were so sharp and cold. They were all extremely strong cultivators. The weakest in the army were at the same level as an elder of the Lin clan. The ones in charge were even stronger. Lin Rui was also extremely strong. Amongst the army, there were at least 3 people who were of similar power or slightly weaker than him. Besides, if there was a battle, there was one person in the army that might be able to kill Lin Rui alone. The Kai Zai troops were releasing their powerful chi. These people were born from battles and frequently bathed in the blood of their enemies. They were fighting gods. They were much stronger than an ordinary army. They had incredible battle experience, and they were a step above normal cultivators. You have come to my Lin clan today. However, I don't know what we can do for you, but I will do my best to help you in any way possible. Lin Rui looked at the army and spoke with a very respectful tone. He had adopted the strategy of diplomacy. If he made them angry, they could annihilate the entire clan. It was better for him to stay humble. At that moment, he was even bowing in an extremely respectful way. He was bowing the same way the people of the Lin clan had bowed to him previously. He seemed to be a different person when dealing with such a powerful army. However, the soldiers didn't pay attention to him. They didn't even spare him a glance. Immediately after, they jumped down from their horses, placed their hands on their chests, and bowed while shouting in unison, "Officer! Officer! Where was the officer?" The crowd was stupefied. They looked around them like crazy and were looking for someone who looked like an officer of these powerful troops. Could it be that someone even stronger was about to arrive? Some small sounds spread in the air. There were tens of thousands of soldiers here. Besides, what amazed the crowd was that some of them were kneeling on the ground. "Officer!" At that moment, a thunderous roar came from thousands of people shouting at the same time, and the ground shook from the entire army kneeling down. The entire army was all kneeling down and saluting. That was an amazing vision. In Zhu Yue, people only had to kneel down only in front of the imperial family to pay respect. In front of others, a simple bow was sufficient. But the troops were kneeling down as a sign of devotion and respect for their officer. They had dedicated their lives to their officer. It was their way of honoring their officer. At that moment, the entire army was kneeling down facing the same direction, the fighting stage. The tens of thousands of Kai Zai soldiers were kneeling, and their brains were all thinking at incredible speeds, but their hearts were moving much faster than their minds. Surprisingly, these soldiers were saluting their officer by kneeling down. The crowd was looking around, yet they couldn't see anyone who looked like a battle-hardened officer. Finally, they looked in the direction that the soldiers were facing. They were all facing the fighting stage. Everybody was blinking as if they couldn't believe their eyes. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The crowd was finally looking at the young man standing on the fighting stage. Even though they had already guessed, nobody dared accept the truth. They didn't want to. A gentle breeze was blowing, which made Lin Feng's robe start to flutter. He then slightly raised his hand and said, "Everybody stand." "Roger, officer," said all the soldiers in unison, and they all moved to their feet in perfect synchronization. The people in the crowd felt like a dagger had just been plunged into their chest. They were shaking as if they were about to collapse. Lin Feng, it was Lin Feng. Surprisingly, it was actually Lin Feng. The crowd was dumbstruck. They couldn't believe their eyes. The one whom all the troops were kneeling down and saluting was surprisingly the only person standing on the fighting stage, Lin Feng. That was the young man whom they used to call a piece of trash and had expelled from the Lin clan. The crowd couldn't believe what was happening. Lin Rui groaned, his blood was boiling, he almost coughed a mouthful of blood. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. "Officer, how is such a thing possible?" thought Lin Rui astonished. Lin Ba Dao also couldn't believe it. The officer, surprisingly, was Lin Feng. They suddenly realized what was happening and what was about to happen. Lin Feng had come to the Lin clan to regain his honor, but he did not come alone. Cough, cough. Lin Ba Dao was coughing up blood. He turned deathly pale. They were finished. This would be the end. "Together, come onto the fighting stage and kill me. What are you waiting for?" Lin Feng was looking at the crowd while sounding cold and detached. The people of the Lin clan were shaking. Would they dare? Such a strong army just required a few seconds to annihilate the Lin clan and slaughter all of its members. Would they still dare to attack Lin Feng together? "Respectable elder, you are very majestic. Originally, you gave the order for them to attack me in a group. Now you are standing there and doing nothing at all. What is that supposed to mean?" Lin Feng was smiling mockingly. The respectable elder's face became rigid. His lips were shaking, but the words wouldn't come out. At that moment, everyone's lives were in Lin Feng's hands. "Respectable elder, you are very strong. You attacked my father from behind and injured him in a single strike. You also expelled my father and I from the Lin clan. How domineering, how imposing. Now, I will give you an opportunity to show your invincible power to everybody again." When Lin Feng saw that Lin Rui was remaining silent, he continued talking. Back in the past, his father had displayed amazing power and strength. Nobody dared fight him to the extent that even the respectable elder Lin Rui had to personally appear to injure Lin Hai. After that, he had expelled them from the clan. How could Lin Feng forget Lin Rui? "You expelled my father and me from the clan." When the crowd heard those words, they all looked puzzled. Indeed, the officer who was controlling such a terrifying army belonged to their clan, but he had been expelled. Lin Feng, while relying on his own strength, had become incredibly strong. He had easily killed the 9th elder and Lin Hao ran. Besides, he had also become the officer of the Kai Zai army. He was respected by thousands upon thousands of people. Even without mentioning the tiny little Lin clan, at that moment, Lin Feng could even annihilate the entire city of Yangzhou. But such an amazing genius had been expelled from the Lin clan. He was forced to leave. What sort of joke was that? However, that was the bitter reality, and it certainly saddened many of the clan members. Such geniuses appeared once every 1,000 years, but they expelled him and caused him to feel hatred towards the clan. If Lin Feng was in the clan, how prestigious would our clan be? Many people were trying to imagine what would have happened if Lin Feng hadn't been expelled from the Lin clan. With Lin Feng's current power, he had managed to obtain Yangzhou city. So if Lin Feng was still in their clan, it would mean that the entire city of Yangzhou would have belonged to the Lin clan. Their dream was to overtake the Nulan clan as the top clan in the city, but the task of making that dream come true had been assigned to Lin Kaiyan. The Lin clan could have actually owned the entire city of Yangzhou. Compared to their dream, this was a much larger achievement. However, because of one wrong decision, they had taken the wrong path. Lin Rui was looking at Lin Feng yet remained silent. He had expelled Lin Feng from the clan. Was he blind? "Since you're not talking at all, I will help you. I will give you 2 choices. The first one is you attempt to get onto the fighting stage together and see the result. The second choice is you and me battle. If you win, I will immediately withdraw the army from the Lin clan." When Lin Feng saw that Lin Rui remained uncommunicative, Lin Feng offered a choice which astonished the crowd. They wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would give such a choice to Lin Rui. Lin Rui had the opportunity to defeat Lin Feng and make him withdraw the army. Lin Rui was the respectable elder of the Lin clan. He was extremely strong and was only a step away from breaking into the Xianxia lair. Each of his attacks were extremely powerful. Besides, how old was Lin Feng? Even though he was a genius, how could he fight against Lin Rui? Lin Feng is so young and proud. He refuses to back down because he is a genius. He already controls an entire army, that's why he acts so confident, thought the members of the Lin clan. In their eyes, Lin Feng was a genius, but he would never be able to defeat Lin Rui. Lin Rui was about 80 years old. How could he let a young boy defeat him? "Lin Feng, are you joking?" Lin Rui hadn't even spoken yet, and Lin Ba Dao had already interrupted. They were facing an incredible army, so none of them actually dared to think about fighting. If Lin Feng wanted them to die, they would die. Lin Ba Dao only hoped for one thing, that Lin Feng would withdraw the army. Lin Feng slowly turned around and looked at Lin Ba Dao. Lin Feng smiled as if he was going to mock them again. "I'm sorry, Lin Ba Dao. Included in my terms is one detail. No matter if I win or if Lin Rui wins, you, Lin Ba Dao, will die here." Lin Feng's voice wasn't loud, but Lin Ba Dao was astonished. His heart felt ice cold. Cold chi was emerging from his body. No matter who won the battle, Lin Ba Dao was going to die. "Of course, I will give you an opportunity. If you manage to kill the respectable elder, I will forget about our past," said Lin Feng while laughing. Lin Ba Dao was astonished. He immediately glanced at Lin Rui. "Impossible. I, Lin Ba Dao, am not that kind of person. Lin Rui is my elder. I would never attack him," said Lin Ba Dao with a tone of morality and justice. His devotion to righteousness inspired reverence. All the people of the Lin clan were slightly nodding in agreement. Slash! At that moment, an attack was cutting through the atmosphere. Lin Ba Dao's hand was surrounded by a cold, twinkling light. A dagger was rushing towards Lin Rui's back at full speed. It was a cold-blooded surprise attack aimed to kill Lin Rui. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Ba Dao's words were still fresh in their minds, but he was already launching a sneak attack. He had proved his own hypocrisy. In order to save his own life, Lin Ba Dao was ready to reveal his shameless nature. "How dare you!" shouted Lin Rui. At the moment when Lin Ba Dao's dagger had almost reached Lin Rui released a piercingly cold ice energy as well as his spirit. In a flash, Lin Ba Dao's dagger and hand were frozen solid. Die! The respectable elder's furious shout spread through the atmosphere. Lin Rui's palm reached Lin Ba Dao's chest. Immediately after, he was covered with a layer of ice, as if he was about to be sealed within the ice. Old fool, Lin Feng was smiling coldly. Lin Ba Dao had attacked, but Lin Rui retaliated at the exact same time. He had been protecting Lin Ba Dao this whole time. On the path of cultivation, there were too many people who, for their lives, were ready to sacrifice the people around them. Lin Rui had lived for almost 80 years. How could he believe the words which just left Lin Ba Dao's mouth? Lin Ba Dao, I have always been good to you, and you dare to try and attack me by surprise. Don't blame for being rude now, said Lin Rui with killing intent in his voice. The piercingly cold energy emerging from his body was becoming more and more intense. No, father! Lin Rui, don't you dare! At that moment, two people shouted furiously. It was Lin Qian and her brother. They both threw themselves at Lin Rui. Screw off! Lin Rui raised his hand and released his ice energy. How could he still care about Lin Qian at that moment? All he cared about was his own life. Die! Shouted Lin Rui evilly. His ice energy was condensed into all of his attacks. Lin Ba Dao was shaking. His body twitched twice. In a flash, the condensed ice energy burst forth and he was frozen to death. Lin Ba Dao, because he wanted to become the head of the Lin clan, had unscrupulously employed unethical methods and plotted against members of his own family. In the end, the result was tragic. Father! Cried the two voices. Lin Rui was expressionless. He slowly turned around. He looked brutally cold. Was the Lin clan really a family? How could they kill each other so easily and without mercy? Lin Ba Dao wanted to kill Lin Rui, but Lin Rui killed him. All these people were now showing their true colors and how treacherous they really were. Lin Rui looked at Lin Feng and jumped onto the fighting stage. He then said to Lin Feng, Lin Ba Dao is dead. I killed him for you. Besides, Lin Feng, you are an outstanding genius. I admit that I was blind. Today, let's fight. If I lose, I will accept my death. Lin Rui's words were inspiring and filled with a lofty and righteous aura, but Lin Feng didn't seem to care at all. What an old fool, saying such nice things to try and awake some compassion in Lin Feng's heart. He had lived for so many years and was adept at scheming. He had cold-bloodedly killed Lin Ba Dao without the slightest bit of hesitation. No need to say such flowery words. Don't worry, if you win, I will withdraw my army. If you lose, it is not that you will accept death, you will beg for it. Lin Feng sounded calm. He then added, All right, let's begin. I'm attacking, be careful, said Lin Rui while nodding. His ice spirit was invading the atmosphere with a powerful energy. The coldness was piercing to the bones. He took a step forwards and ice chi rushed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng shook his head. They were fighting. Lin Rui didn't have to be so polite to him. Lin Feng moved his right foot forward and raised his arm with a fierce sword energy. At the moment when the sword energy was about to reach Lin Rui's body, Lin Feng slashed his hand down. A hero at dusk, under the setting sun, the brilliance was slowly fading. When Lin Rui saw Lin Feng's hand, he felt like he was seeing an illusion. He had the feeling that the sun was starting to set. Sword of the setting sun? Lin Feng had used his hand as the sword. His hand cut through the atmosphere, blood sprayed into the air, and Lin Rui's arm was sent flying through the air. One strike was enough to remove one of Lin Rui's arms. When the crowd saw that arm flying in the air, they were astonished once again. That attack didn't diffuse resplendent light. They hadn't even seen a sword. Lin Feng's sword was his hand. His entire body was a sword. It was a sword without brightness and splendor. In a short time, Lin Feng surprisingly had become extremely strong. Even the respectable elder couldn't rival him anymore. He hadn't even been able to withstand a single attack. Lin Rui had the strength of the 9th Ling Qi layer. He just needed one more step to reach the Xuan Qi layer. But what was Lin Feng's level? Lin Feng was only 17 years old and was young like many of the juniors of the Lin clan. But the people of the Lin clan always relied on their parents and on the clan. Lin Feng was absolutely different from the others because he was already extremely strong and already controlled an army. That was a huge difference, and the young people of the Lin clan would be unable to catch up with him. That young man who had been expelled from the Lin clan was already above their entire clan and made them prostrate themselves before him. Ah! Lin Rui gave a horrible shriek. He raised his remaining arm and released all the ice chi that he could, not hesitating and putting everything into his attack. But Lin Feng moved again. He was quick and agile. He seemed moved in fusion with the earth. He looked mysterious. A light flashed immediately. Lin Rui's hand slightly touched Lin Feng's shoulder and ice started to appear. But then Lin Feng slightly moved his hand, and a sword light filled the atmosphere. Slash! Lin Feng's hand slashed like a meteor. Blood sprayed and filled the air. Lin Rui's other arm had just been cut off. Lin Feng had cut it off as easily as the first arm. Lin Feng was much stronger than Lin Rui. Lin Feng dashed past Lin Rui, and at that moment he was behind Lin Rui's back. Lin Feng's hand had pierced his back, and he looked calm and peaceful. Ah! A cry of agony spread in the air. Lin Rui had the impression that the world around him was vibrating. His body was violently shaking. Blood didn't stop flowing onto the ground, but Lin Rui's heart felt even more painful than his arms, which had been cut off. If Lin Feng didn't kill him, he crippled his cultivation. Respectable elder, back in the past, you were very strong and controlled everything. You could do whatever you wished. You expelled my father and me from the clan. You chose a new clan head. You attacked and hurt my father. Now I came back and I am stronger than you, therefore I now control everything. I can now do as I wish. If I want to cut your arms off, I can. If I want to kill you, I can. Lin Feng's voice was coming from Lin Rui's back. These words were the harsh reality. Strength was the most important thing in that world. If one was strong, one had power over weaker people and could thus do as they wished. Lin Rui used to have the advantage. He had injured Lin Feng's father and had expelled him. Now Lin Feng was stronger than him and had easily cut off his arms, who could do anything against that. If he wanted to cripple anyone's cultivation, he could. If he wanted to kill anyone, he could. Lin Rui's heart was bleeding. At that moment, his heart was filled with venom, but his mouth was firmly closed. He didn't dare say anything to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was right. In that world, the strong could control everything. If Lin Rui wanted to stay alive, he had to keep his mouth shut, even if he hated Lin Feng. Becoming a cripple is still better than dying. Lin Rui was already old and cherished life. He didn't want to die. Lin Rui, today I will have mercy on you and will not kill you. You are now half dead. I cut off your arms because of what you did in the past. Now you need to vanish from my sight. If someday you have the possibility of getting your revenge, come at me, said Lin Feng, sounding cold and detached. No matter what his status was in that world, all that mattered was strength. Lin Rui was shaking. He turned around and looked at Lin Feng. Immediately after, he started walking and slowly left. He looked lonely and desolate. That was the price he had to pay for having made such a grave mistake in the past. After Lin Rui left, Lin Feng gazed into the distance and then looked at the Great Elder and the Third Elder. He said, sounding cold and indifferent, "Great Elder, Third Elder, you too can cripple your own cultivation. Don't make me do it personally, otherwise there will be an extra fee of 2 arms." Lin Feng sounded calm and serene while the 2 elders were deathly pale. They should have expected it. Lin Feng was getting his revenge for all the bad things they had all done to him in the past. Back then, they kept humiliating Lin Feng, forced him to leave. These 2 people had been Lin Ba Dao's accomplices. That's why Lin Feng wanted to make them cripple their own cultivation. When the Great Elder saw the armless silhouette in the distance, he suddenly burst into an insane laughter. Immediately after, he moved his hand and bombarded his own cultivation. He groaned and blood gushed from his mouth. He had crippled his own cultivation. The Third Elder was shaking. He was slowly and hesitantly moving his hand, but not attacking. "Third Elder, if you don't want to die, cripple your own cultivation immediately," said the Great Elder, sounding tense. The Third Elder was shaking even more. He glanced at the Great Elder and crippled his own cultivation as well. The head of the clan, Lin Ba Dao, had died. The third uncle, Lin Hao Ran, had died. The 9th Elder had died. The respectable Elder no longer had arms. The Great Elder and Third Elder had crippled their own cultivation. Lin Feng had come back and spread terror amongst people's hearts. Lin Feng was standing on the fighting stage and looking at the crowd, sounding indifferent. He said, "All others, I will not touch you, even if you hate me. That is, of course, providing that you behave properly. Of course, if you want to get your revenge, you can also come and find me. The best thing is for you to think carefully about your future, though." When Lin Feng finished talking, he turned around and moved down from the stage. He raised his hand. In a flash, the myriad of troops climbed onto their horses. They were a perfectly trained elite army. Lin Feng and the troops were making history together. Lin Feng also jumped onto his horse that was brought. He looked domineering. "Let's go," said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. At that moment, a voice spread in the atmosphere. "Wait, wait!" When Lin Feng heard that voice, he stopped but didn't turn around. He just waited for the other person to talk. "Lin Feng, will you consider coming back to the Lin clan?" said a hopeless-sounding voice, which made everybody else shiver and look towards Lin Feng. Indeed, would Lin Feng ever return to the Lin clan? If Lin Feng accepted to go back to the Lin clan, not only would it give him nothing, but it would give incredible prestige to the Lin clan. It would make them become one of the most prestigious clans in the entire region. That hopeless voice was resonating in people's hearts, but nobody dared speak. The same person spoke again. "If you are willing to come back to the Lin clan, we can make all those who opposed you in the past leave the clan, including Lin Caiyan." The person spoke again because they had seen that Lin Feng remained silent. The whole crowd was quiet. Indeed, if Lin Feng accepted, they could forget about Lin Caiyan just like they did to Lin Feng in the past. Back in the past, they had chosen the proud and arrogant Lin Caiyan, who couldn't rival with Lin Feng any longer. Lin Caiyan looked at Lin Ba Dao's corpse and felt extremely sad. She used to be the pride of the Lin clan. Even in Yangzhou City, many people respected her, but because of Lin Feng, her glory had been destroyed. Lin Feng was much more prestigious than her. Lin Caiyan could still vaguely remember when she had gone to the Yun Hai sect and humiliated Lin Feng while looking down on him. But all of this was already the past. Back in the past, when I was expelled from the Lin clan, nobody said a word. Now that you see that I am strong and have a high status and you want me to come back to the clan, is that even possible? There are some things which cannot be taken back. Lin Feng was on his horse. He didn't even turn around to look at them. Immediately after, he left at full speed with his horse, emitting whistling sounds through the atmosphere. The myriad of Kaizai troops seemed to be flying. The ground was shaking along with people's hearts. The Lin clan were all looking at the leaving silhouettes. Their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. Some things could not be taken back. Lin Feng was right when everybody kept humiliating him who had said a word. Who spared even a single word to help Lin Feng? When the Lin clan wanted to kill Lin Feng, who had said anything to try and save him. These days, Lin Feng was extremely strong and was the officer of a huge army. Only now they wanted him to go back to the clan. Was that even possible? They could never get back what they threw away and discarded, never. At the end of the year, Yangzhou City was always extraordinarily lively. On the road, people were standing around in small groups. At that moment in Yangzhou City, there was a majestic army composed of Kaizai armored cavalry. They were making an inspection tour of the city. All of them looked domineering and imposing. Everybody was looking at them with a deep respect. The Kaizai troops are extremely majestic. It is said that they are all elite soldiers. Now they are in our city. On the road, the Kaizai horses were trotting. The crowd was looking at these majestic horses. Some people were talking about them. That is an honor for our city. Now that the Kaizai troops are here, we are incredibly prestigious within the entire region. Who will dare provoke us? You're right, last year, I had the chance to see the Kaizai officer with my own eyes. He was only about 16 years old, but at the annual cultivation meeting of Yangzhou City, he had displayed incredible abilities. He was much stronger than Lin Feng or Lin Caiyan. They couldn't even withstand a single attack. At that moment, I already knew that the officer would become an incredible person. I just wouldn't have thought that it would happen in such a short period of time, said a man with a long mustache. He sounded so proud that it made people around him feel exasperated. 1 year before, there had been a young man at the cultivation meeting of Yangzhou City, but the members belonging to the biggest clans had attacked him and forced him to escape. 1 year later, that young man had become more mature, more determined, and extremely strong. He looked extremely majestic and imposing on his horse, controlling several thousand soldiers. He had returned to Yangzhou City as a glorious young hero. Since that moment, the 4 big clans of Yangzhou City had sunk to new lows. There was only Lin Feng controlling a military government. He had replaced the former government and shut out the clans from city affairs. But the people were excited and delighted by all of this. They had heard that Lin Feng wanted to build a Kaizai castle and take measures to make Yangzhou City grow more influential. Yangzhou people were, of course, happy because they would be able to enjoy more benefits, including benefits for their practice of cultivation. At that moment, the government infrastructure was in constant change. The Kaizai troops were busy enlarging the government palace. Within 1 day, all the walls surrounding the government had been destroyed. At that moment, Lin Feng was standing in an underground passage. While looking at the tunnel, Lin Feng looked pensive. The Kaizai troops had just finished digging this passageway, and it was pitch dark. Strong as they were, they had already done half of the work for him. Since Lin Feng had become the officer of such powerful soldiers, he, of course, used them to accomplish difficult tasks. His silhouette flickered and he disappeared down the passageway. After a short moment, he appeared in the middle of a room. In front of him was a huge table. Standing on the left and right of the table, there were three silhouettes. They looked pensive. These three people were the former middle, left and right officers, Ren Qingquang, Feng Yuhan, and Lei Qingtian. They all used to have their own armies, but now they were assisting Lin Feng and staying by his side. Lin Feng, look, we are here. Here we can dig a river. Then we can build towers on these 8 strategic locations. The government building is in a valley, so even people of the Xuan Qi Lei are come. In normal circumstances, we should be able to defeat them. Feng Yuhan sounded full of confidence. The Kaizai troops were elite soldiers. Ren Qingquang was an expert at planning and defensive military strategy. The left officer, Feng Yuhan, was an expert at organizing military formations and offensive strategies. The right officer, Lei Qingtian, was an expert at organizing a geographical strategy and modifying terrain to protect the troops. They were all extremely skilled officers. Obviously, controlling such a huge army required them to divide the tasks. All these officers had their own tasks to fulfill. Lin Feng was carefully observing the table. He slightly nodded and said, "Uncle Feng, you can reorganize the city as you wish. I just need you to help me build a secret underground city. Constructing an underground city will not be difficult now, because the troops are extremely happy to follow your orders. However, the Imperial City will not help us again. We have to rely on ourselves. If we spend too much time and money on all of this, it might become complicated. Besides, the troops could also lose their enthusiasm over time." Lin Feng slightly nodded. That was indeed a problem. Currently, the troops were in a perfect state of mind. Even if they accepted to help and invest from their own pocket, that wasn't a solution for the long term. An army was extremely strong, but also required a lot of things. They required pills, purity stones, weapons, armor, and battle horses. Besides, constructing all these things in Yangzhou City also required a colossal amount of resources. "I understand. I will find a solution for all of this," said Lin Feng. Immediately after, he looked at Ren Qingquang and Lei Qingtian and said, "Uncle Ren, you can take care of the weapons and constructions. Uncle Lei, you can take care of the guards and protection of the city. You are all working very hard, thank you." "All right. Don't worry, I can do it," the 2 officers replied to Lin Feng. These days, Yangzhou City was Lin Feng's fief. He could not let the army suffer. He had to make his army become even stronger and expand his power. He still remembered the memories from the strong cultivator. They were all extremely valuable and precious memories with vast knowledge. Sooner or later, the city of Yangzhou would rise and draw the attention of the entire country. Lin Feng didn't intend to go back to the Imperial City in the following months. He wanted to concentrate his attention on Yangzhou City. "Uncles, you are all working very hard, thank you." Lin Feng looked grateful. These 3 people used to be officers, and these days they were following and assisting him. That would always remain engraved in Lin Feng's memory. "Lin Feng, the 3 of us, as well as Jiu Kaizai, followed the general even at the cost of our lives. Now the general's heart had died with Jiu Kaizai. The 3 of us, in short, are willing to help you because the general trusts you with the future of the army, and because of that we trust you too." Ren Qingquang was looking at Lin Feng, and his eyes were filled with hope. Lin Feng was extremely frivolous and had dared to kill Duan Tianlang's son, Duan Han, for Liu Kanglan. If Lin Feng didn't become extremely powerful, the 3 of them would give up because it was clear to them that these days, Liu Kanglan's heart was no longer the same. He didn't have the same ambition as he used to. If they were on Liu Kanglan's side, there wouldn't be much to do. Therefore, they had listened to Liu Kanglan and had decided to follow Lin Feng and help him achieve his ambitions. Only they could understand the glory of such things. Lin Feng understood that as well, which is why he had to be extremely ambitious. In a clean and tidy room, all the furniture was brand new. Lin Feng pushed the door and entered that room. There was a gorgeous silhouette sluggishly lying on a bed and looking at the ceiling. It was impossible to say what that person was thinking. Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng and then turned around again. She looked as cold as before. Lin Feng smiled wryly. How come he hadn't managed to make her heart melt yet? But it was also very clear to Lin Feng that these days he could freely enter Meng Qing's room. That was already a good thing. If it had been someone else, that person would probably have been frozen stiff by Meng Qing. Only Lin Feng could go into her room. Lin Feng walked towards Meng Qing and spoke in a low voice. "What are you thinking about?" Meng Qing slightly shook her head and said, "Nothing." Lin Feng got closer to the bed and slowly sat down. Meng Qing moved her legs away, allowing Lin Feng to sit down. "Are you thinking about me?" asked Lin Feng with a smile on his face. But Meng Qing was just calmly looking at him coldly, which made Lin Feng's face become rigid. That girl was way too difficult to understand. Meng Qing, still lying on the bed, looked at the ceiling again, ignoring Lin Feng. Lin Feng slightly moved closer to Meng Qing, which made her move back a bit more. She was staring at Lin Feng approaching. She then glared as if she was looking at a dangerous enemy. Lin Feng scratched his head and kept approaching Meng Qing, which finally made her react. She was blinking nervously. "Can I hug you?" said Lin Feng while looking at that breathtaking beauty. "Only if you do it without speaking," said Meng Qing. Lin Feng had anticipated that reply and was already hugging her, pushing her head onto his chest. Meng Qing and Lin Feng were locked in an embrace. Meng Qing was shaking from head to toe. She had no strength anymore. She couldn't do anything but follow Lin Feng's movements and lean on his chest. Meng Qing raised her head and looked at Lin Feng. Their faces were very close. At that moment, something very rare happened. Emotion flashed through Meng Qing's eyes, and she looked shy. Her pure and holy face suddenly turned red, which made Lin Feng's heartbeat accelerate. "Let me go!" Surprisingly, Meng Qing was struggling to move away from Lin Feng, but he was holding her too tightly. Very quickly, she stopped struggling and lowered her head, not daring to look at Lin Feng's scorching hot eyes. Lin Feng smiled. That girl was cold, but she still listened to Lin Feng. "I like holding you," said Lin Feng while smiling. Meng Qing slowly turned her head around and raised it while looking at Lin Feng. Her eyes betrayed her at that moment. Meng Qing then calmed down and laid against Lin Feng's chest again. Lin Feng was hugging her and she was feeling calm and at ease. It was such a perfect moment. That short moment seemed like an eternity. Lin Feng was tightly holding onto that absolutely gorgeous young woman. His heart was beating quickly. She was enchanting. However, Lin Feng was not thinking of the act between a man and a woman, but was still feeling a strange warmth rising within him. "Meng Qing, look at me." After being silent for a while, Lin Feng spoke. Meng Qing, who was lying on Lin Feng's chest, raised her head and looked at Lin Feng. She looked a bit surprised. "You truly are beautiful," said Lin Feng while smiling. Meng Qing felt unfamiliar emotions. She looked shy again. Every girl liked it when the person they loved thought they were beautiful. Meng Qing, even though she was an unusual girl, was, after all, still a girl. She also understood the feelings of love and hatred. Once a girl fell in love with a boy, she wouldn't be that different from the others. Everyone became a child when in love. Lin Feng was lowering his head, getting nearer and nearer to Meng Qing's face. Meng Qing looked extremely embarrassed. She was shaking and her heart was pounding. She wanted to escape, but at the same time, she didn't want to go anywhere. Finally, Lin Feng pressed his lips against her lips. Meng Qing was shaking. It was like an electric shock. Her eyes were wide open, her face was rigid. She didn't know what was happening, but it felt right. They didn't kiss for a very long time before Lin Feng moved his head back and looked at Meng Qing. He smiled at her in a very sweet way. Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng and saw that he was smiling. She looked extremely shy. She didn't dare look at him. She had the feeling that she was drowning in emotion. She was extremely shy and nervous. Actually, Lin Feng was nervous too. It was the first time that he had fallen in love with someone. It was also the first time that he embraced and kissed a girl. How could he not be nervous? Even though he could use his sword and remain calm in the middle of a bloodbath, when it came to girls, Lin Feng was very nervous. Maybe he lacked experience. "Meng Qing, have a good rest," said Lin Feng while standing up and looking at Meng Qing. Immediately after, he turned around and started to leave. After Lin Feng left, Meng Qing raised her head. She was excited and embarrassed at the same time. She sat down and put her hands on her knees. She looked pensive. She wanted to remember a smile. In her thoughts slowly appeared a smile, a warm smile. 3 months later, many things had been constructed in Yangzhou City. There were vast new buildings that had been constructed. Besides, there were also 8 huge towers, which were a few hundred meters high, and when looking up at them, they seemed to reach the stars. Besides, the old government building had become the headquarters for the new government. It was much more extravagant than in the past. Besides, it was very lively inside. and there were things constantly going on. However, the people didn't know what was happening there apart from the fact that the government was undergoing reconstruction. In an underground place, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged, motionless. At that moment, Lin Feng had the feeling that he had reached an extremely high level of earth fusion. In his mind, there was a dark world in which a myriad of bright lights were flashing. These lights were all in different corners, seeming unorganized. These disorderly and unsystematic lights seemed like they had been put there randomly, but actually, when looking at them from the right angle, one could notice a special form. It looked mysterious. Many surplus souls were moving towards these lights, and finally, a strength attracted them. A light appeared between two lights, and all of the lights seemed to be fused into a shape. The dark atmosphere slowly became brighter. Immediately after the lights appeared, the lights were getting more and more intense in that dark atmosphere. They were gathering together, making the dark atmosphere extremely bright and even dazzling. The lights were also moving faster and faster. The lights were slowly adopting a peculiar shape, the shape of 9 palaces. In Zuyue, cultivators of the Xianxia layer were considered as extremely strong cultivators because they could control and condense qi from the world to transform it into pure qi that could be used, thus benefiting from its strength. Each thread of pure qi contained a colossal amount of strength. At the same time, cultivators of the Xianxia layer could also gradually learn how to control the strength of their soul, which helped them concoct pills and increase the power of pills, weapons, and their attacks. Besides, before breaking through to the Xianxia layer, even though some people could use various strong methods, they still couldn't benefit from the strength of the soul, which strongly limited their abilities. Every cultivator of the Xianxia layer had a few basic cultivation techniques. At least, they all practiced until they could perfectly control pure qi. There wasn't a single one of them who couldn't control it. However, pure qi control could be stronger or weaker. There could be large quantities and small quantities controlled by the cultivator. Weak pure qi control only enabled the cultivator to condense pure qi a little bit quicker. However, the strength was limited. Strong pure qi control enabled cultivators to unceasingly use stronger pure qi, but it required more time. At that moment, Lin Feng was practicing his pure qi condensation. Even though Lin Feng had a lot of purity stones, it wasn't enough to supply his army. Therefore, the thing was to provide his army with the best cultivation practices in order to save the use of purity stones. At the moment, he was still in fusion with the earth. Lin Feng's eyes were closed. His consciousness was in a world filled with darkness and bright lights. His mouth moved. He then immediately said, "Condense." At that moment, Lin Feng was insanely shaking. He groaned, his eyes slightly opened. Lin Feng coughed and raised his head. He looked around him. There were dazzling lights surrounding him, and they were slowly condensing. When the last light was fused with the others, an incredibly dazzling aura appeared. There were 9 palaces, and they started absorbing the pure qi of heaven and earth. Lin Feng couldn't bear the pain, but the shapes that appeared made him smile. The 9 small palaces of qi condensation. What a powerful technique. Lin Feng could feel the pure qi from the earth starting to gravitate towards him. The cultivation towers of the Celestial Academy provided incredible amounts of pure qi. The pure qi would be drawn towards the tower and would fill the rooms for cultivation practice. Lin Feng was now also able to condense pure qi. These 9 small palaces were already extremely powerful. The knowledge that the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer transmitted to me is, as expected, extraordinary. I have now been learning surplus souls and can make 100 surplus souls appear. My soul has also become much stronger, coupled with earth fusion. If I didn't have all these things, I wouldn't be able to condense qi to such a degree, whispered Lin Feng. His extremely strong soul was giving him the chance to become much stronger. The surplus soul's technique as well as the earth fusion had been indispensable to him when it came to condensing pure qi. A moment before, people in the government building were stupefied. Above them in the sky there was a pattern that appeared. It looked like 9 palaces, but then, in the blink of an eye, they disappeared again. They had just sensed the pure qi, as if all the qi of heaven and earth was moving towards them. At the same time, around the government building, many people were stupefied as well. They had also sensed the pure qi emerging from the earth, as if there had been a strange strength absorbing the powerful pure qi of heaven and earth. Only an extremely strong cultivator of the Xianxia layer could have managed to condense pure qi like that. After the people sensed the qi, they all looked in the same direction, the government building. 2 months after, the government buildings looked completely different. It was like a new small city was built within the city of Yangzhou. The government area was much bigger than before. There were palaces, pavilions, and even a castle within the area. It looked majestic, and it gave the feeling of power and military might. Besides, it seemed like it was still not complete. They hadn't constructed any ramparts, yet as they were still expanding outwards and reconstructing. Apart from the Kai Zai troops who were constructing things within the government area, there were other people as well. There were some people who had been hired to help, and some others who were working as volunteers. At that moment in Yangzhou City, everybody wanted to go to the government area and were happy to do some manual labor because there was an incredible quantity of pure qi that seemed to be gathered there, which meant that it was an extremely beneficial place for cultivators. On the path of cultivation, the pure qi of heaven and earth could alter bones, flesh, blood, and improve cultivation. A cultivator would have never refused an environment rich in pure qi. Besides, in Yangzhou City, there weren't many people who had purity stones. Those who practiced cultivation using purity stones lived a life of luxury. Ordinary people could only absorb the pure qi of heaven and earth which was present in the atmosphere. However, these days, the government area was filled with pure qi in which the manual workers could bathe all day while working. Then, in the evening, they could practice cultivation in the outer area. The government area was already divided into an inner government area and an outer area. The inner government area could be accessed only by Kai Zai soldiers, the core members of the government. It was strictly prohibited for other people to enter it. If someone tried to enter it, they would be executed on the spot. At that moment, some silhouettes were passing through the door of which led from the inner government area to the outer area. They were Kai Zai troops galloping at full speed while creating a hurricane of dust. In a flash, they had left. Officer Lin Feng is such a heroic and majestic young man. Indeed, as he's as young as the rumors said. It's such an honor to be able to see Officer Lin Feng. Outside, there was a lively crowd who saw the Kai Zai horses pass by. Their eyes were alight with excitement. These days, in Yangzhou City, Lin Feng had become a legend, a myth. His name was on everybody's lips. Seeing Lin Feng was, for them, an honor. Besides, even though Lin Feng was the Marquis of Yangzhou, they liked to call him Officer Lin Feng even more. The term officer was majestic and imposing. It perfectly corresponded with Lin Feng's status. By the way, have you ever seen the officer's girlfriend? She wears a fine veil just like a celestial being. Of course I have seen her. Even though we can't see her face, I can guess that she's an exceptional woman. The officer couldn't be with a girl who doesn't match him. They definitely suit each other. People were making various comments. At that moment, Lin Feng's horse had already rushed past. "Meng Qing, everybody is saying that you are my girlfriend," said Lin Feng on his horse while glancing at Meng Qing, who was galloping next to him. Lin Feng was smiling. He had clearly heard what these people were saying. Meng Qing glanced at Lin Feng but didn't say anything. But Lin Feng kept smiling wholeheartedly. In the past, Meng Qing used to be ice-cold and expressionless. These days, she was at least looking at him, which could be considered as an improvement. A group of Kai Zai horses were leaving the government area, and then immediately they left Yangzhou City as well, galloping towards an ancient road. Celestial River was an ancient city with a history which dated back to millions of years. That majestic ancient city, even though it had gone through the challenges of time, still had the atmosphere of an ancient city. At the entrance gate, there was an incredibly artistic, ferocious beast carved into the stone. It was a legendary wild beast, a phoenix. Fire was burning on the back of its wings. That beast was filled with ancient qi. Celestial River also had another nickname, Phoenix City. Celestial River was situated in the middle of the Zhu Yue country. It was surrounded by what seemed to be an endless desert. When one stretched one's eyes as far as one could see, there was nothing but yellow sand. However, that geographical position didn't affect the development of the city, which was a huge trading center, one of the biggest in Zhu Yue. The city was filled with flourishing businesses of all sorts, including fields of real estate and different trade industries. Local people were very rare. Since the beginning of time, Celestial River had been a city in which people came to carry out transactions and find the objects they desired the most. With time, the local population had almost gone extinct, and most of the population was businesses. There was a saying in Zhu Yue which said, "If you need something, you will find it at Celestial River." In Celestial River, the average quantity of extremely strong cultivators was also higher than the national average to the extent that it had some of the strongest cultivators of the country. Those who didn't have a high cultivation were embarrassed to go there, considering they would encounter strong cultivators on frequent occasions. On the street, when a person saw another unknown cultivator, maybe he was a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer or even of the Xianxia layer. That contributed to making the city even more appealing. At that moment, outside of Celestial River, a group of Kaizai horses were galloping on the yellow sand, surrounded by a cloud of yellow dust. They were galloping towards Celestial River. That group was composed of only 3 people, Lin Feng and 2 others. Lin Feng and Meng Qing were galloping at the front, and Ba Dao, who was wearing a mask, and following them. These days, Ba Dao seemed introverted. He was also able to better control his aggressiveness and his temper. Meng Qing, Celestial River carries out very liberal politics. You can enter as you wish. However, inside it can be perilous. People are cruel and merciless. A person should not hide their presence or they may be attacked by others, said Lin Feng to Meng Qing. Meng Qing's lifestyle used to be completely different, so Lin Feng was doing his best to tell her as many things as possible. All right, said Meng Qing while slightly nodding. Lin Feng turned his head and looked in front of him. Coming from the left, 2 armored horses were rushing into the city before them. 2 cultivators of the 9th Ling Qi layer, whispered Ba Dao behind Lin Feng and Meng Qing. Lin Feng was stupefied. As expected, the rumors about Celestial River were true. At that moment, they were rushing through the yellow desert, then arrived on a road made of bluestone leading towards the city gate. But at the same time, 2 silhouettes descended from the air, landing under the Phoenix City gate, blocking their way. Lin Feng, Ba Dao, and Meng Qing reined in their horses, which started trotting and eventually came to a stop. They looked at the 2 silhouettes who were in front of them. They were 2 men who were about 30 years old. One of them looked ice cold and dark, while the other had an evil smile on his face. These people were definitely not here with good intentions. "What do you want?" said Lin Feng, sounding cold. "Every person who wishes to enter the city must pay a fee of 10 purity stones of medium quality, which means that you 3 have to pay 30 purity stones in total. 300 purity stones of lower quality would be fine as well," said the one who was smiling evilly. Lin Feng frowned. "Celestial River is the city of freedom. You can enter and leave as you wish. Since when do you have to pay a tax? Besides, even if there was a tax, why would I give it to you?" said Lin Feng, sounding detached. "Because I say so, so no need to speak nonsense," said the evil-looking person furiously when he heard Lin Feng. Lin Feng's facial expression turned ice cold. A moment ago, 2 people had entered the city, and these 2 didn't stop them. When they arrived, these people came down. They most probably thought that they were weak. As expected, Celestial River was a heaven for strong cultivators and hell for weak ones. "What if I don't give you anything?" said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. "If you don't give me anything," said the man with the evil smile. Even though Celestial River was full of extremely strong cultivators, not all of them were strong. Lin Feng was very young and had high natural talent, but how strong could young cultivators be when compared to their elders? Young people like Lin Feng were the favorite targets of these 2 men. They were always stationed above the city gate and stealing purity stones. It was extremely easy to get purity stones because people who came to Celestial River often had all their money to purchase goods. "If you don't give it, you will die," said the one with the evil smile on his face. He released some deadly qi. "Sacrificing 3 lives for 30 purity stones of medium quality, are you sure that it is the right decision?" asked the one with the evil smile. His qi was getting denser and denser. "No need, I'm sure," said Lin Feng while turning around and moving his horse forwards. These 2 men smiled coldly and said, "Do you think that you can just leave like that?" But at the moment they finished talking, Ba Dao rushed over to them, releasing a terrifying qi. At that moment, Ba Dao's qi turned into blade energy. It was extremely sharp and ice cold. At that moment, these 2 men's facial expressions changed drastically. His blade qi was extremely powerful. There was also blade force. Besides that, qi had the force was at the 7th qi layer, which was the same level as theirs. "Die," said Ba Dao. In these 2 men's eyes, an expression of hopelessness appeared. A bright, resplendent, and dazzling light cut through the air and removed their heads from their body. Ba Dao remained expressionless. "Let's go," said Lin Feng, and the 3 people entered Celestial River. At that moment in the distance, there were a few silhouettes, 2 boys and 1 girl. When they saw these 2 heads fly away, they took a deep breath. "What a strong and powerful blade," said the girl in a low voice. These 3 people had arrived in Celestial River earlier, but because of these two people, they hadn't dared enter the city and were trying to hide in the distance. Ba Dao had immediately killed the two men. Who's the person who's wearing the mask? He should already be a master of blade force. I heard that the second core disciple of the Hao Yue clan, the Blade Master, was also coming to Celestial River. Could that be him? Whispered the girl. The two boys on her side said, "If he is the Blade Master, who are the two others?" The young girl shook her head, indicating that she didn't know either. Immediately after, these three people entered Celestial River. The big power closest to Celestial River was the Hao Yue sect. The second was the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. Therefore, in Celestial River, there were always plenty of disciples of the Hao Yue sect and of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. In Celestial River, they could find all the things they needed. They obviously enjoyed spending time there. A year before, the holy courtyard of Zhu Yue had been inaugurated, the Yunhai sect had been annihilated, and at the same time, the Hao Yue sect and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village had to give up many of their outstanding disciples to send them to study at the holy courtyard of Zhu Yue. In a year, the biggest sects of the country had completely shaken. For example, now, the best core disciple of the Hao Yue sect was Jiangshan, and the second was Leng Yue Aka the Blade Master. Amongst the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, Bing Yuan was one of the best talents. All of them were illustrious disciples. They were rising stars. Amongst all of them, the Blade Master was particularly amazing. He was even more monstrous than Jiangshan. Leng Yue's blade was piercingly cold. The cold pierced to the bones like needles. Leng Yue rarely needed a second blade strike in his battles. One was enough to kill his opponents. Very often, he didn't even need to take out his blade to kill his opponents. The Blade Master's blade had reached perfection. It was said that, when he had the power of the third Ling Qi layer, he had understood how to control blade force. Then when he had the strength of the sixth Ling Qi layer, he had learned how to use energy attacks, and these days, he was extremely strong and had broken through to the eighth Ling Qi layer. However, with his energy attacks, he was already able to defeat cultivators of the ninth Ling Qi layer. People who dared to fight against him were rare. Leng Yue's blade didn't appear randomly. If he took his blade out, it meant he was going to kill. Therefore, in a short time, within the last 6 months, he had gained the nickname, the Blade Master. Everybody knew the 8 high officials of Zhu Yue. Many people thought that, in the future, the Blade Master could become one of them. On the central road of Celestial River, there was the Celestial Mountain Restaurant. Many people were having a break there and drinking some alcohol. At that moment, a silhouette stepped onto the wooden floor of the restaurant. When the people in the restaurant saw that silhouette, everybody went quiet. There is some blade energy. That blade energy is so cold. The crowd was stupefied. Everybody was staring at the person who had just entered the restaurant. That person looked like an ordinary young man. That young man didn't look like a noble cultivator. He didn't seem normal either. The only noticeable thing was that he was carrying a blade on his back. It was an ancient one. It was even partly rusted. People were trying to guess how old that blade really was. Everybody was staring at that common and ordinary young man and remained silent. It was because he was releasing an extremely strong and powerful blade qi, which seemed like it could explode at any moment and kill people. When that young man looked at the crowd, they had the impression that his eyes were like blades. The young man came in and indifferently glanced at the crowd. Everybody could feel the sharpness of his blade. Everybody was avoiding looking into his eyes. They didn't dare. But at that moment, the young man stopped. His blade-like eyes started looking at someone. That person was wearing a bronze mask and was releasing an incredibly brutal blade qi. That person was like him, a blade cultivator. But that person's blade was a brutal blade. His was a sharp blade. The young man smiled as he found the situation amusing and then stopped looking at him, went away and chose a place to sit. Because of him, the atmosphere in the restaurant had become quite oppressive. "Ba Dao, how strong is he?" asked Lin Feng to Ba Dao in a low voice. They were sitting at a table on the second floor and were next to the banister. "Very strong, I cannot defeat him. My strength and blade qi is not as strong as his," replied Ba Dao and then continued. "He has broken through to the 8th Ling Qi layer." "Oh," said Lin Feng while nodding. He had, of course, noticed that that young man was stronger than Ba Dao. Considering the blade energy that he released, and in view of the fact that he had broken through to the 8th Ling Qi layer, he could probably already use her energy attacks and was at the point of condensing pure qi. Everybody could sense his strong blade energy. He wasn't releasing as much blade energy as he could, though. He was actually very relaxed, yet was releasing such a powerful blade energy as if he couldn't control it. It was not under his control, because he had not mastered how to successfully condense his pure qi, small amounts of the pure qi. He was attempting to condense would be released along with each heartbeat. Coupled with the fact that he had the strength of the 8th Ling Qi layer, he could easily kill people of the 9th Ling Qi layer. Besides, people who were as strong as him, yet as young as him, were extremely rare. But he is too arrogant. He cannot rival you, said Ba Dao, which made Lin Feng smile. Shamelessly boasting, joked someone at the same time. That voice came from the table beside Lin Feng and his friends. At that table there was 4 people, 2 boys and 2 girls. The one who had said these words was a young girl. She was looking at Lin Feng and Ba Dao. She then said, sounding ice cold, "You're really shamelessly boasting. You really are ridiculous. Leng Yue is my fellow disciple from the Hao Yue sect. He's extremely strong and has amazing natural talent. His nickname is the Blade Master. In the future, he will be the same as Chu Zhan Peng, the high official of our sect. He will become one of the 8 high officials. Who do you think you are?" These 4 people were acting extremely arrogant. They really thought they were above everyone else. Besides, they were disciples of the Hao Yue sect, which is why they were proud of the Blade Master and Chu Zhan Peng. "The Blade Master? What an arrogant name," replied Ba Dao. He immediately added, "But I've never heard of him before." The name was as sharp as a blade. Blade Master was indeed an arrogant nickname. "Catcha!" A cutting sound emerged in the atmosphere. The banister next to Lin Feng's table was broken. The place where it had been cut was neat and clean, as if it had been cut with an extremely sharp blade. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the first floor over the banister. He saw that Blade Master was sitting at his table and drinking some alcohol. At that moment, the Blade Master put his glass down onto his table and said while sounding indifferent, "Next time that you open your mouth, be a little bit more respectful." He sounded calm and didn't try to hide his arrogance. "He definitely deserves his nickname. He's extremely powerful. I didn't even see him take his blade out," thought some people. Some young girls were looking at him with sparkling eyes. If only they could marry such a young man, that would be wonderful. Ba Dao stood up. Some brutal qi was emerging from his body. "Sit down," said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. Ba Dao was surprised. He immediately sat down again, yet still released some cold qi. "Drink some alcohol," said Lin Feng calmly. Ba Dao grabbed his glass, had a sip, and then his glass broke between his fingers. Ba Dao was a slave, but had been given to the arena because he was too disobedient. He had ended up with Lin Feng, who had given him freedom, but Ba Dao was still aggressive and had a strong personality. "That guy is overestimating his own abilities," joked the Blade Master. Ba Dao was getting angry, but Lin Feng and Meng Qing were very calm. These words weren't affecting them at all, as if they hadn't even heard them. "Hao Yue sect, the Blade Master," thought Lin Feng. He slightly smiled. It had been almost half a year since he had been out of the spotlight, yet it seemed like it had been 10 years. Many things had changed. For a few months, Lin Feng had stayed in the government practicing his surplus soul technique, increasing his qi condensation method, and studying his memories granted to him regarding pills and weapons. However, Lin Feng had the feeling that his abilities still weren't high enough. There were too many things which he wanted to improve. Lin Feng didn't want to owe anything to Zhu Yue, which was a tiny country. In the memories of the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer, there was one person that was almighty. By slightly waving his hand, he could make heaven and earth turn upside down. Reporting in from the translation cave to wish you all a Merry Christmas. When the boys and girls sitting at the table next to that of Lin Feng and his friends saw that they remained silent, they sneered at them and stopped looking at them. "Brother, do you know why Leng Yue came to Celestial River?" "Of course, he came to Celestial River because of a blade," replied a boy. "Oh," smiled a young girl while looking at the others, and then said, "Leng Yue's blade skills are already so high. Are there still blades which can draw his attention? It probably must be an amazing blade." "Moonbreaking blade, it's a spiritual weapon of highest quality. What do you say?" said a young boy of the Hao Yue sect while smiling. Everybody was captivated and surprised. As expected, the Blade Master had come for the Moonbreaking blade. They had all heard that that blade was available in Celestial River at that time. Many people had come because of it. A spiritual weapon of highest quality, not many people can get it, right? He, if Leng Yue is here, who will dare try and get it? Unless they want to become Leng Yue's enemies as well as the enemy of the Hao Yue sect. When the crowd heard these people talking, they all understood what they meant. They were boasting about Leng Yue so that nobody would dare to try and steal the blade. The crowd understood that they had to think carefully before trying. That girl of the Hao Yue sect knew why Leng Yue had come, so it was obviously clear that she was saying these things on purpose. The people who were with her looked proud and arrogant as well, but in the crowd, nobody dared to contradict these people. The Hao Yue sect had a certain influence in Celestial River. Besides, at that moment, the Blade Master was also present. A spiritual weapon of highest quality, thought Lin Feng. He obviously knew the classification of spiritual weapons. There were ordinary weapons and spiritual weapons. Spiritual weapons could cut through iron as if it were mud. They also gave a cultivator a certain superiority during battles, and besides, they were also divided into 3 categories: low, medium, and high quality. At the Yun Hai sect, Lin Feng had obtained spiritual weapons in the temple near the precipice of Yangzhou. Most of them were low and medium quality spiritual weapons, but there were also a few high-quality spiritual weapons. In Zuyue, spiritual weapons and pills, no matter what quality, were all very scarce. Seeing spiritual weapons of high quality was an extremely rare thing. There were also better weapons than spiritual weapons, mystical weapons. In Zuyue, there were very few of them. Cultivators of the Chuan Qi layer rarely used mystical weapons. Lin Feng had never seen any in his life. "Ba Dao, that moon-breaking blade, do you want it or not?" asked Lin Feng to Ba Dao in a low voice. Ba Dao was stupefied. Ba Dao was a blade cultivator. He obviously loved blades. How could it not want it? "I want it," said Ba Dao while nodding greedily. Ba Dao was like that. If he wanted to do something, he just did it. "All right," replied Lin Feng, sounding indifferent while nodding. He didn't add anything else. After a short while, Leng Yue put his glass onto his table, stood up and left the restaurant. After that, someone else came in and took his table. He had just left, and thus the strong blade energy had vanished. The atmosphere wasn't as oppressive anymore. "Sister, let's go too." The Hao Yue sect disciples, who were at the table next to Lin Feng, also stood up and left. After they left, Lin Feng asked Ba Dao, "Are you going to go ask where to find your new blade?" Ba Dao was surprised. He immediately stood up and walked to a table near them. He asked the people sitting there, "Where can we find the moon-breaking blade?" The 2 people sitting at the table raised their head and looked at Ba Dao. They smiled coldly and said, "You're also wondering where the moon-breaking blade is." Boom. He had just finished talking, and he released an incredible quantity of blade energy which oppressed the people who were sitting at the table. It was extremely brutal. They were shaking and looked absolutely terrified. In the Dream Pavilion, today there will be an auction sales at the Dream Pavilion. That person was panic-stricken and gasping with astonishment. A moment ago, Ba Dao's blade energy was unceasingly flowing towards Leng Yue, so these 2 people hadn't realized how strong Ba Dao's blade force was. At that moment, all the energy which was emerging from Ba Dao's body had fallen onto them, which gave them the impression that they would be crushed to death. What a monstrously strong blade force! That man who was wearing a bronze mask had already mastered blade force. "Lead the way," said Ba Dao. These people were surprised but obediently stood up. Fortunately, they had told Ba Dao the truth. If they had lied to him, he definitely would have killed them. "All right." The person nodded in fear and led him outside of the restaurant. Lin Feng and Meng Qing also stood up and followed. When the people in the restaurant saw Lin Feng and the others leave, the atmosphere became lively. Who were those people? What a strong blade energy. He is probably interested in the moon-breaking blade as well. Indeed, there was also that guy and that girl. They didn't seem like ordinary cultivators. Even though they were probably weaker than the Blade Master, they also said that they wanted the moon-breaking blade. It seems like there will be a great show soon. All sorts of comments were spreading amongst the crowd. There were even some people standing up and then leaving towards the Dream Pavilion. The rumors said that, on that day, apart from the moon-breaking blade, there were going to be 2 other treasures at the auction of the Dream Pavilion. The Dream Pavilion was one of the big marketplaces in Celestial River. It was a vast and broad place covering a huge area. Celestial River was a city which was millions of years old, and treasures were more numerous than in the Imperial City. There were new treasures being sold each day. There were some precious things which could only be acquired at the marketplace, at an auction market, or through trade. At that moment, Lin Feng and his friends entered the pavilion. It was very noisy inside. In the pavilion, there were all sorts of people. Handsome young men who had an elegant carriage, delicate and beautiful young women, shabbily dressed old men, and filthy beggars. Some people were there to sell things, while some others were looking for various things. "Sir, a Xuan skill of high quality, are you interested?" At that moment, a middle-aged man walked next to Lin Feng and talked in a low voice. Lin Feng was surprised. He then smiled, shook his head, and said, "I don't need it, thank you." When that middle-aged man heard Lin Feng, he didn't insist and immediately left as if nothing had happened. "What's wrong?" said Lin Feng, perplexed, while looking at a person near them. "Sir, it must be your first time in Celestial River." "Indeed," said Lin Feng while nodding. "No wonder," said that person as if they had suddenly understood. He continued, "Celestial River is the biggest marketplace in Zuyue. Here, there are various methods of selling things. Goods that are on the ground are ordinary goods and inexpensive. Of course, there are exceptions as well. Some of the sellers are also extremely strong cultivators and are therefore not afraid of putting the items they sell on the ground. They don't mind. Who would dare come and steal their things? The second way to sell things is to find people with whom you can exchange things. For example, that person a moment ago needed purity stones, which is why he was looking for someone in need of skills, who would be willing to give him purity stones in exchange. There is also a third way to sell things, and it is at the auction sales. You can auction your things in the Dream Pavilion and sell them in their auction. Why do people exchange things with other people and don't bring them to auction sales?" asked Lin Feng, confused. The fees of Dream Pavilion were quite low, and besides, they could sell things at a higher price. "There are many reasons. One of them is that they only sell 10 items a day. If you want to give them things to sell, you need to give it to them 3 days in advance, and then they select the objects that they want to sell. If your thing is rejected, they give it back to you. Many people are unwilling to go through that troublesome procedure. Besides, ordinary things cannot be sold at the auction. Then, there are some people who are paranoid and don't want to show what they have to everybody else. It makes them worried. If they bring things to the auction marketplace, they feel unsafe. Therefore, they prefer going and finding someone on their own, which comes down to finding a needle in a haystack." When Lin Feng heard these words, he nodded as a sign that he had understood. Indeed, there were all sorts of possibilities. There were people who were realistic and felt good only if they had the object they were selling on themselves near them. Many people were realists. "It seems like we'll have to stay at the Dream Pavilion for a few days," thought Lin Feng. That time he had come prepared. He absolutely needed to get a few things. "Look, it's Bing Yuan, the top disciple of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village." At that moment, a surprised voice spread in the air. Many people were looking in one direction. They saw a group of people being led by an ice-cold and fierce-looking man, Bing Yuan, who had joined the Ice and Snow Mountain Village after the high official Luo Zhu left for the Imperial City. Lin Feng looked in the same direction as the other people and saw Bing Yuan. What a cold young man! In the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, only possessors of ice and snow spirits were accepted. All the skills they practiced were ice skills. When that group of people arrived, it seemed like the atmosphere had suddenly become much colder. "Ninth Ling Qi layer," said Ba Dao. Lin Feng faintly nodded. The fact that the Yun Hai sect had been annihilated wasn't a random and groundless event. 1 year before, the Yun Hai sect was, indeed, the weakest of all the largest sects. It was obvious when seeing the disciples of the other sects. Bing Yuan and his friends were walking forwards. At that moment, many people were moving aside, opening a path for them. Very quickly, Bing Yuan arrived in front of Lin Feng, but the crowd noticed that Lin Feng wasn't moving aside. He was standing in the same place he was before, motionless. "Huh!" Many people were stupefied. Who were these audacious people? They saw that Bing Yuan and his friends wanted to pass, but these people were making them go around them. Bing Yuan frowned, and some ice-cold qi moved towards Lin Feng and the 2 others. The atmosphere around them was surrounded by a layer of white frost. Very quickly, Lin Feng's body was surrounded by a layer of ice. Lin Feng was still standing at his initial position, looking calm and serene. An invisible strength appeared. Lin Feng's clothes were fluttering in the air. In a flash, the ice around his body completely vanished without trace, as if there hadn't been anything at all. "What's going on?" The crowd was astonished. In the blink of an eye, the ice around Lin Feng's body had disappeared. "It seems like that person is extremely strong. No wonder that he isn't moving even though Bing Yuan is trying to pass," thought many people at that moment. They were starting to pay attention to Lin Feng. He seemed quite mysterious. "I'm Bing Yuan of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. Who are you?" asked Bing Yuan to Lin Feng, sounding extremely cold. Frost was floating around his body. "Lin Feng," said Lin Feng indifferently. Surprisingly, when Bing Yuan heard his name, his pupils shrank. Lin Feng, he had heard that name many times in his sect. The elders of the sect often talked about him. Half a year before, he had set a city on fire and was famous in the imperial city for all his actions. Strong cultivators who belonged to the largest sects obviously knew who he was. Lin Feng? I've never heard that name. I don't know which sect he belongs to, thought people in the crowd. They were puzzled. They didn't know which sect had an outstanding disciple called Lin Feng, but from Bing Yuan's facial expression, they had the impression that he knew Lin Feng. He was frowning. Then Bing Yuan walked around Lin Feng. People who were with him angrily glared at Lin Feng. They were asking themselves why Bing Yuan hadn't killed him. He surprisingly dared to act so arrogantly before them. But Bing Yuan remained silent. His friends had no choice but to follow him and ignore Lin Feng. At that moment, a strong ice energy flew through the air towards Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng smiled coldly and slightly shook his hand. Ah! At that moment, a horrible shriek filled the atmosphere. It came from the disciple who had just attacked Lin Feng by surprise. The arm he had used for the attack was hanging from his shoulder by a layer of skin, and cultivation had just been crippled. All the disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain village turned around and looked at Lin Feng with ice-cold glares. "Brother, what's going on?" "He attacked me by surprise," said the disciple whose face was deathly pale. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Attacked by surprise? Lin Feng took a step forward and released swift and fierce qi. It invaded the entire atmosphere. That person started shaking and then groaned. He was terrified. He was staring at Lin Feng and blood started flowing from his mouth. "You dared kill me," said that person with a trembling voice. Immediately after, his facial muscles relaxed and he collapsed onto the person who was behind him. He had just died, yet his eyes remained open with a shocked expression. Lin Feng had just killed him in front of the group of disciples. They would have never thought he would be so daring. The crowd was astonished, dumbstruck, and fixedly staring at Lin Feng. How audacious! He had killed that disciple in front of all his fellow disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain village, including Bing Yuan. "As if I needed to attack you by surprise," said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. That guy had just said that Lin Feng had attacked him by surprise. Lin Feng didn't feel like wasting words, so he immediately killed him. Lin Feng was much stronger than him and was not scared of the disciples. He had dared to kill him immediately while they all watched. Had Lin Feng needed to attack him by surprise? The other guy obviously just wanted to slander Lin Feng. People in the crowd were indiscernibly nodding. Indeed, with Lin Feng's strength and courage, it was impossible for him to have attacked that guy by surprise. The disciple was just lying. Lin Feng looked indifferently at the disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain village, and more precisely at Bing Yuan. What did they intend to do? Bing Yuan looked glum. Even though he knew that his fellow disciple had provoked Lin Feng first, Lin Feng had killed him in front of everybody else. That was a humiliation for Bing Yuan, and for the Ice and the Snow Mountain village as well. "Lin Feng, it seems like you don't care about humiliating me," said Bing Yuan while releasing some cold energy. The crowd was stupefied. Did he want to fight? "Why would I care about humiliating you?" replied Lin Feng, sounding cold. "Since you know me, you also know my background now. Why would I need to care about humiliating you or even your entire sect?" Bing Yuan was surprised. Indeed, Lin Feng was a disciple of the Yunhai sect. The Ice and Snow Mountain village had also contributed to the destruction of the Yunhai sect. Its patriarch, Hanzu Tian, had even personally gone there to participate. Did Lin Feng need to give him face? It seems like Bing Yuan knows Lin Feng. It's just that we don't know him. We have to remember that name, thought the people in the crowd. Lin Feng surprisingly dared contradict Bing Yuan. It meant that he was probably extraordinarily strong, yet they had never heard his name. That was very strange. "Bing Yuan, brother, kill him." "Yes, brother, he killed our fellow disciple. Kill him." Each and every single disciple of the Ice and Snow Village Mountain was furious. Lin Feng was too audacious. He had killed their fellow disciple and was still acting arrogantly. They were furious and wanted to kill him. "Kill me? Are you not done talking shit?" said Lin Feng while glancing at the disciple. Lin Feng was provoking them to try and kill him. He was extremely aggressive. He was inviting these people to attack him and see the results. Their facial expressions were hideous. They didn't dare attack him, though. Lin Feng had just slightly moved his hand and killed their fellow disciple. Besides, Bing Yuan seemed hesitant. That person was extremely strong. They could only try to convince Bing Yuan to attack, but Bing Yuan did not dare attack either. Lin Feng's power is unfathomable. He has broken through to the 7th Ling Qi layer already, and that was over half a year ago. He's probably much stronger now, thought Bing Yuan while staring at Lin Feng. He then thought, Besides, I came to Celestial River for a reason, and it has nothing to do with Lin Feng. The most important thing is for me to buy the thing I need." When Bing Yuan thought about the situation, he suddenly felt relieved. He had to stay in his peak condition because he had even more important things to do. In comparison with he had to do, the death of his comrade was meaningless. "Let's go," said Bing Yuan as he started leaving. That move made everyone stupefied. "Let's go." Bing Yuan surprisingly left. Was he scared to fight against Lin Feng? The disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were even more surprised. Bing Yuan wasn't fighting. Their deceased fellow disciple wasn't going to be avenged. "Let's go," said Bing Yuan extremely coldly, which made them shiver. Immediately after, they glared at Lin Feng again, yet left. They didn't dare contradict Bing Yuan. In the mountain village, Bing Yuan was extremely powerful and aggressive. Those who dared oppose him were punished. That time, they didn't know why he wasn't avenging his fellow disciple. Was he afraid of Lin Feng? Lin Feng looked at them leave. He looked calm and serene. Immediately after, he continued walking around the dream pavilion. A moment later, he arrived in front of an old man's rug that was selling pill ingredients and squatted down. "Old man, how much is that spiritual lichen?" asked Lin Feng to the old man. The old man raised his head, looked at Lin Feng and said, "1 purity stone of lower quality per stem. Help yourself." "I would like 100,000 stems," said Lin Feng. The old man was astonished and was blankly staring at Lin Feng. 100,000 stems. Even though spiritual lichen wasn't extremely valuable, 100,000 was a huge number. "Why do you need so much lichen?" "To concoct some spiritual sanguine pills." "Spiritual sanguine pills? What other ingredients do you need?" Lin Feng's pupils shrank. He knew that he had found the right person. "I am making pure earth pills, spirit breath pills, and red sun pills." When the old man heard Lin Feng, he remained silent for a second. Lights were flashing in his eyes. He then said, "Wonderful, then you need some scorching heat herb, sanguine plants, and pure qi grains." "Indeed, I need a lot of ingredients," said Lin Feng while nodding. While walking around, Lin Feng was observing the vendors and their strength. That old man's strength was unfathomable. Ba Dao hadn't been able to tell. Therefore, they had come to him. It seemed like he was an extremely powerful cultivator who, on top of that, could also concoct pills. The old man smiled and looked at Lin Feng. "It seems like you came prepared, but did you already know that I had these things?" "Old man, I didn't know, but a cultivator of the Xiu and Qi layer selling pill ingredients here is always something easily noticeable," said Lin Feng with a warm smile. The old man smiled and shook his head. "Don't call me old man, you can call me Mr. Huo. That girl behind you is just as enigmatic." "Mr. Huo," said Lin Feng, getting more intimate with the old man. He then continued, "Mr. Huo, I just told you what I needed and I need huge quantities. Do you know where I can find such large quantities? If small quantities are enough for you, I can help you, but if you need hundreds of thousands, I have no solution for you." The old man was shaking his head. Hundreds of thousands, that was a huge quantity. Who was able to depict that many plants? "But you asked me where you could find them. There is a place, but you cannot go there." "Cannot go there?" Lin Feng was stupefied and asked. "If I ask you to help me, will it still be difficult?" The old man frowned and looked at Lin Feng. "Hundreds of thousands is a colossal quantity. I'm not sure I can get that much. Besides, if you need hundreds of thousands of each of the herbs and plant, even though they are not valuable, it is still a tremendous amount." "Do you know of spirit blood pills?" asked Lin Feng. "Huh!" The old man was stupefied. A strong qi emerged from his body. That abrupt rise of qi made Lin Feng feel an incredible heat, as if he was going to burn alive. The old man probably was an expert at using fire. People who were experts at using fire had high proficiency in concocting pills and fabricating weapons. Of course, the soul also had to be extremely strong. "What do you know about spirit blood pills?" asked the old man. "I know about them. Spirit blood pills can alter the blood vessels and the soul, making a cultivator's blood vessels and soul become extremely strong. They are extremely beneficial for cultivators of the Xiu Qi layer. It's a Xiu level pill of medium quality," said Lin Feng slowly. The classification of pills was similar to that of weapons, which also depended on the different cultivation levels. After ordinary weapons, there were spiritual weapons, and then mystical weapons. Besides, there were ordinary pills which were suitable for cultivators of Qi layer, but who were of almost no use for cultivators of the Ling Qi layer. Only Ling-level pills had effect on cultivators of the Ling Qi layer, but were of almost no use to cultivators of the Xiu Qi layer. Cultivators of the Xuan Qi layer required spiritual weapons as well as Xuan level pills. The Spirit Blood Pill was a Xuan level pill of average quality, which was extremely beneficial to cultivators of the Xuan Qi layer, even if they had broken through to the 6th Xuan Qi layer. Weapons and pills were also classified according to their quality: high, average, and low quality. Using Xuan level pills of average quality on a cultivator who was under the 4th Xuan Qi layer would have been a waste. Even though the pills were still beneficial to them, their bodies weren't able to entirely assimilate them. Then, if used on a cultivator above the 6th Ling Qi layer, these pills had almost no effect. Therefore, they were adequate for cultivators between the 4th and the 6th Qi layer. How could the old man not be surprised when he heard that Lin Feng wanted some Xuan-level pills of average quality? "Can you concoct them?" asked Mr. Huo while staring at Lin Feng. At that moment, Mr. Huo didn't look sluggish anymore, he looked captivated. "How could I concoct that kind of high-quality pills?" said Lin Feng while shaking, which made the old man frown. But Lin Feng continued, "But accidentally I obtained the recipe of the spirit blood pills." "The recipe?" The old man was surprised and started breathing faster. There were 3 difficult things about pills: being able to or finding someone to concoct the pills, finding the material to concoct the pills, and then obtaining the recipe. Besides, the recipe was the most important thing. Without it, it was impossible to concoct the pills. Of course, many people thought that the one who concocted the pills was the most important because it was very difficult to find good ones. But without the recipe, how could anyone concoct the pills? However, with the recipe, even without someone to concoct the pill at least, the recipe was already extremely valuable. "Indeed, the recipe, Mr. Huo. I just talked about a few pills. I need to make at least 20,000 of each. What materials do I need? Master Huo probably knows better than me. If you can help me, I will offer you the recipe of the spirit blood pill." Lin Feng had said 20,000, which represented a huge quantity. It was the first time that Mr. Huo heard a person say that they needed 20,000 pills. "Then don't worry, I understand," said Mr. Huo while staring at Lin Feng. "Mr. Huo, if you kill me, you will not obtain the recipe. Besides, you might not necessarily be able to kill me. I am convinced that Mr. Huo wouldn't try such a thing anyway," said Lin Feng while smiling. Mr. Huo remained silent, looking pensive. "All right, deal, but I need a few days." "All right, no problem. 3 days later at dinner time, I will be at the Celestial Mountain restaurant waiting for you. How does that sound?" "All right, see you in 3 days," said Mr. Huo while rolling up his sleeves. In a flash, the herbs on the ground vanished. He obviously had enough stone. Mr. Huo turned around and immediately left the dream pavilion. It seemed like the old man could handle things for Lin Feng at the speed of light. When Lin Feng saw Mr. Huo leave, he smiled. Lin Feng's plan had worked without any incident. Concerning the recipe of the pill, it wasn't going to be a loss for Lin Feng. It was in the memories which the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer had given to him. He just had to write it down on a piece of paper and hand it over. Lin Feng wasn't going to lose anything in the transaction. "Let's go." Lin Feng started walking again, going towards the depths of the dream pavilion. They weren't the only people in that case. At that moment, they were surrounded by a myriad of people who were walking in the same direction, including the vendors who were packing up their things. "The auction sales will start in about half an hour. Do you know if the moon-breaking blade will be sold today or not?" Lin Feng respectfully asked someone walking over to their group. That person had seen Lin Feng kill the disciple of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, and then ignore Bing Yuan. They had also heard Lin Feng talk about Xuan-level pills with Mr. Huo. That timid person couldn't believe his ears. Besides Lin Feng, who was also extremely strong, the man wearing a bronze mask who was following him was probably just a subordinate. "Leave. Forget everything that you have seen and heard today," said Lin Feng, sounding cold and detached. That person then timidly nodded and said, "Understood." After that, that person left feeling aggrieved. Lin Feng ignored him and moved towards the entrance of the auction. Then Lin Feng said to the 2 people at the entrance, "I have things to sell at auction. With whom should I talk?" "Come with me," said one person. Lin Feng followed him and entered the auction room. After a short time, they arrived in a room where people were sorting various goods. When Lin Feng saw all these goods, he was stupefied. There was an incredible quantity of goods that people wanted to sell at auction. The person who received Lin Feng was a very sexy woman. Her skin was as white as snow, her shoulders were beautiful and well-formed, she had well-developed white breasts. She was extremely attractive. "What do you want to sell, sir?" A die-level skill of low quality called Swift Leaf, as well as 10 spiritual weapons of medium quality, said Lin Feng, sounding cold and detached. The sexy woman was stupefied. The smile on her face suddenly turned into a deep and profound facial expression. "Sir, please come with me," said the woman while standing up. "You can wait here for a moment," said Lin Feng to Meng Qing and Ba Dao. Immediately after, he entered in a secret room with the woman. In that room, things were in complete disorder. It definitely required some tidying. These goods were the ones which had been selected to be sold at auction. "Sir, show me the things which you would like to sell at auction," said the woman who had arrived by an old man's side. "All right." The Swift Leaf book appeared in Lin Feng's hand. At the same time, above the ground, a small light flashed, and suddenly, 10 spiritual weapons appeared, and a resplendent light emerged. Lin Feng handed over the Swift Leaf skill to his interlocutor. The woman gave to the old man, who looked through it. Immediately after, the old man nodded and said, "No problem. It's a medium quality skill of the die level. There is no problem with the spiritual weapons either." "Thank you, senior." The woman smiled and packed the skill and the weapons. She then sealed the box for safekeeping. She then wrote a few notes on the package and handed a small jade card over to Lin Feng. "Sir, your things will be sold tomorrow. After the auction, you only need to come back with jade card, and we will know what items belong to you. The fortune won't be small, and you will receive all your purity stones without a fee. Besides, using that card, you can enter the area reserved to our special clients," said that beautiful woman with an enchanting smile on her face. While talking, the way she was moving her body made her look even more seducing. "No fees and sold tomorrow," thought Lin Feng. The normal procedure was supposed to last 3 days, but because Lin Feng's goods were extremely valuable, he had gained some privileges. Concerning the reward, Lin Feng thought that he had already had plenty of fortune. The memories of the strong cultivator were his most valuable possession. Lin Feng nodded and left the room. In the area reserved for special clients, Lin Feng and Meng Qing were sitting on soft chairs, while Ba Dao was standing behind them. From the inside of their booth and behind the special curtains, they could clearly see the entire huge auction room. At that moment, a delicate silhouette suddenly appeared at the very front. That was precisely the woman that had received Lin Feng before. At that moment, she had already changed her clothes and was wearing a long blue cheongsam which was drifting over the floor. Her shoulders weren't covered, and her dress also had a low-cut neckline. Lin Feng was feeling a strange sensation. A light flashed in Meng Qing's eyes, who then glared at Lin Feng. As if Lin Feng had sensed it, he turned his head and briefly looked at Meng Qing. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile while his lips were slightly shaking. At that moment, in the area reserved to special guests, there was an ordinary young man who looked ice-cold like a blade. Then a group of people, looking solemn and respectful, were standing behind him. "Lan Jiao is more and more alluring each day," said Leng Yue indifferently. "Leng Yue, if you like Lan Jiao, she will not refuse," flattered someone standing behind him. Leng Yue, looking evil, said, "Well, if she's too obedient, what's the point? I like to cut them by force." When the 4 others heard him, they looked at each other. The Blade Master was a monstrously aggressive and sly person. He didn't care about knowing if the person was willing or not. He enjoyed using his blade to abuse women. The 4 others would never have thought that he had a tendency like that. He surprisingly liked to cut them. "It's not that easy to come to Celestial River. I want the blade, but I also want a few women," said Leng Yue, sounding indifferent. The 4 others were surprised. It seemed like Lan Jiao wouldn't be able to escape from him. Why did she have to have such an alluring body, and on top of that, why was she revealing so much of it? It certainly made men drool. On that day, the auction was normal. There were 10 items. Lin Feng wasn't interested in the things which were being displayed at that moment. He was just sitting there and watching. However, at the moment when Lan Jiao displayed the 8th item, Lin Feng started to be interested. It was a Ling-level spiritual weapon of higher quality. Its price was 1,000 purity stones of medium quality. On that day, many people had come for the moon-breaking blade. It had just been introduced that its price had already been raised to 2,000, which exceeded many people's budgets already. Spiritual weapons of higher quality were precious, but 2,000 purity stones was very expensive. 3,000 purity stones of medium quality. At that moment, a voice, which was as sharp as a blade, emerged in the atmosphere. Some blade energy also spread in the atmosphere and enveloped the crowd in the auction room for a few seconds. Many people were surprised. They turned around and looked at the reserved area. A single person was releasing all that blade energy. It's the Blade Master, thought the crowd. That blade energy had probably been released by the Blade Master. People knew that he had come to Celestial River. Surprisingly, he was releasing his blade energy across the crowd. How aggressive. But the Blade Master was stronger and more gifted than them. Besides, he was a disciple of the Hao Yue sect. He could afford to be that aggressive. He was a bit more vigilant in front of a cultivator of the Xianxia layer, but facing people of lower levels didn't scare him at all. After he released Blade Qi, obviously the entire atmosphere became silent. 3,001 purity stones of medium quality. At that moment, someone sounding cold and detached spoke, breaking the silence. That voice also came from the area for special guests. Besides, that person wasn't far from the Blade Master, only one booth was separated them. Huh! Lin Yue was surprised and immediately said coldly, 4,001, said the other voice sounding cold. Progressively, Lin Yue's facial expression was changing. He suddenly released much more blade energy towards that person. Blade Master, what does this mean? The auction room is supposed to be a fair and quiet place. What are you doing? Said a cold voice sounding ice-cold and aggressive while blocking the blade energy. Disciples of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. The crowd was surprised. These were people of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, and surprisingly someone dared provoke the Blade Master. Only one person could do that. Bing Yuan, shouted the Blade Master and continued. 5,000, 5,001, 8,000. That time, Lin Yue immediately increased to 8,000. At the same time, he released an incredible quantity of blade force which made the ground shake. The crowd was stupefied. The Blade Master was wealthy. That price was already very high. Since Brother Lin Yue likes it that much, I give up. Lin Yue smiled indifferently. Ice-cold energy invaded the atmosphere like a hurricane. White frost emerged as well, and explosion sounds. The booth separating these two people exploded, and 3 silhouettes were revealed. A man and a woman were sitting there, and a man with a bronze mask was standing behind them. Well, thank you, Bing Yuan, for leaving the moon-breaking blade for me, said the Blade Master, sound egocentric. He didn't even pay attention to Lin Feng and the 2 others in the middle. The crowd was looking at Lin Feng, the 2 others. They were secretly shaking their heads. Lin Feng and the 2 others had unluckily ended up in a booth between Bing Yuan and the Blade Master. They were going to receive the collateral damage. Lan Jiao, say it, said the Blade Master while looking at the stage. Lan Jiao looked at the booth which had just exploded and smiled while slightly nodding. She was about to say something when Lin Feng said, 8,001. Everybody was surprised when they heard Lin Feng. He was surprisingly bidding. He's been angered. Maybe he lost his sanity because of the explosion. It seems like they've run out of luck. Many people came up with the same idea, but those who had seen Lin Feng and Bing Yuan didn't think that was the case. Not only had Lin Feng provoked Bing Yuan, but he was also provoking the Blade Master, Lin Yue. When Lin Yue heard Lin Feng, he was stupefied. Apart from Bing Yuan, there was someone else who was trying to anger him. The Blade Master slightly closed his eyes and concentrated to find out who had said that. He then immediately found out. Then he opened his eyes again and a cold smile appeared on his face. It seems like the warning I gave you with my blade in the restaurant wasn't enough, said Lin Yue coldly. Immediately after, he said, 9,000 purity stones of medium quality. 9,001, said Lin Feng hastily almost at the same time as Lin Yue finished speaking. The scariest was that Lin Feng sounded calm. He didn't sound nervous at all, as if he didn't care about the Blade Master getting angry. You want to die, said Lin Yue while standing up. An incredible blade energy rolled in the air, emitting explosive sounds. At that moment, Lin Yue launched himself through the curtains in front of him and appeared in front of the crowd. At that moment, he and Lin Feng were only separated by a small partition. They just had to make a small step forwards and they would be able to see each other. Ba Dao's silhouette flickered and moved to the front. His agility was insane. In a flash, an incredible amount of blade force invaded the atmosphere. In the air, an explosion sound emerged when the 2 blade forces collided. He stopped bidding and is making a spectacle of himself. The Blade Master should be renamed the Shameless Master, joked Lin Feng. How could he be so daring as to make fun of Lin Yue in front of everybody? 12,000 purity stones of medium quality, said Lin Yue while gnashing his teeth. He had bid again because Lin Feng had joked about the fact that he had stopped bidding. As expected, people of the Hao Yue sect have so many purity stones, said Lin Feng while laughing, and then continued. That spiritual weapon is now too expensive for me. He should die. He did that on purpose. That guy is interesting. He surprisingly dares to provoke the Blade Master, tricking him into spending more purity stones for the moon-breaking blade. When the crowd heard Lin Feng, they were stupefied. That was extremely audacious. Leng Yue and the 4 people behind him looked ice cold. "Ha ha, brother, you're right. It seems like the Hao Yue sect has too many purity stones," said Bing Yuan in the tone of a joke. He sounded overjoyed to pour oil onto the flames. Besides, Leng Yue would hate Lin Feng even more if they fought. That would be interesting. But Lin Feng smiled coldly. His lips vibrated, and he replied extremely coldly. "Who are you calling your brother? The people of the Hao Yue sect are just like you. You are all shameless and have to do things in the shadows because you don't dare let your real intentions show. You are all shameless cowards." When Lin Feng finished talking, the crowd was once again astonished. Not only was Lin Feng provoking the Blade Master, but he was provoking Bing Yuan. He was fearlessly humiliating them. Bing Yuan's smile became stiff, and then an exploding sound emerged in the atmosphere. The 3 rooms were united. Its occupants could all clearly see each other. At that moment, the main representative of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village was Bing Yuan, and for the Hao Yue sect it was Leng Yue the Blade Master. Besides them, there were 3 more people. One of them was standing before the booth. The 2 others were a man and a woman. They were both calmly sitting on their chairs, ignoring the others. They had not moved a single finger so far and were just talking. Besides, that girl was wearing a fine veil on her face, looking fascinatingly beautiful. "Bing Yuan, are you laughing at me?" Leng Yue said in the tone of a joke. Bing Yuan had been provoking him all the way. He wanted Lin Feng and him to fight, but the result was that Lin Feng humiliated them both. "HMPH," Bing Yuan was glumly smiling. He had already given Lin Feng face, but Lin Feng, the first time, killed his fellow disciple and humiliated him. The second time, he was humiliating him again. "Brother Leng Yue, how should we dispose of him?" "You decide," Bing Yuan said, sounding evil, getting ready to attack Lin Feng. "Who's your brother? He's right. People of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village are all cowards. What makes you think that we can become brothers?" said Leng Yue. Bing Yuan was dumbstruck. He had the impression that the whole crowd was staring at him and that he was suffocating from the humiliation. The oxygen seemed unable to reach his lungs anymore, and he felt like he couldn't breathe. A great quantity of cold energy spread through the air. The entire auction room seemed like it was going to freeze. "Gentlemen, now please let the auction continue. You can solve your problems after the auction," said Lan Jiao from the stage. Her smile was soft and warm, just like the sound of her voice, which suddenly made the atmosphere feel a bit lighter. "All right," said Bing Yuan, looking ice cold. Lin Feng nodded at Lan Jiao and smiled back to her out of politeness. "Now Leng Yue has bid 12,000 purity stones of medium quality. Is anyone willing to raise?" said Lan Jiao while smiling at the crowd. Nobody was answering. 12,000 for a spiritual weapon of that quality was already too expensive. In order to practice cultivation, even for a cultivator of the Xianxia layer, so many purity stones of medium quality would have been enough to practice indefinitely. "If there is nobody, I would like to congratulate the Blade Master on his new acquisition, the moon-breaking blade." Lan Jiao smiled and continued. "The next object of our auction sales is an ancient cauldron. On the cauldron, 9 dragons are carved. This cauldron is hundreds of thousands of years old. It must have been used to concoct pills and weapons in ancient times, but it seems that some parts are now missing. We cannot find out its level, but the expert of our company, the Dream Pavilion, said that if no part was missing, it would be at least a Xuan-level cauldron of high quality, a real treasure. For everybody to understand clearly what parts are missing, we will show you the cauldron." When Lan Jiao finished talking, 2 people brought a cauldron. That cauldron was about 1 meter high. Its diameter was also about 1 meter. On the top, there were 9 dragon carvings. They almost looked alive. Besides, there was 1 dragon which was looking up at the sky and uttering a long cry. It seemed like it was about to fly away. However, the 8 other dragons seemed to be incomplete and did not look like the first dragon, as if that was the part that Lan Jiao had mentioned. Besides, from a certain distance, that cauldron seemed to be absolutely normal, and its carvings seemed to be releasing a strange chi. "I hope that you can trust our experts at the Dream Pavilion. This cauldron has some missing parts, yet it shouldn't be inferior to a Ling-level cauldron of higher quality. You can already use it to concoct pills. If it were intact, it would definitely be a treasure of the Xuan level. Even when mentioning these characteristics, it wouldn't be enough for the crowd to be interested. In Celestial River, we always have some antiquities which have missing parts. We are honest about it. However, it would still be classed as Ling level of higher quality. Besides, it can also be used to defend from attacks. Perhaps there were some cultivators who could concoct pills who would be interested. The price is 1,000 purity stones of medium quality, said Lan Jiao. Immediately after, people in the crowd shook their heads. 1,000 for a broken cauldron was too expensive and unworthy. When Lan Jiao saw that the crowd was shaking their heads, she smiled wryly. She knew that selling that precious cauldron wouldn't be easy. It was difficult to get a good price for it, but it was really a priceless treasure. I will buy it for 1,000 purity stones of medium quality, said someone at that moment. That person was an old man. He could obviously concoct pills. Even though that cauldron was of no use, the old man was still interested in these kinds of mysterious treasures. Besides, as far as he was concerned, 1,000 purity stones of medium quality wasn't a big sum. Since the old man said so, just give it to him, somebody said in a low voice, but people really despised that cauldron. People didn't fight for it because it wasn't an attractive object. Everybody remained silent. The atmosphere was a bit cold. That cauldron seems pretty nice. I think it's worth getting. It's a real antique. I will give 2,000 for it, said Lin Feng, sounding cold and detached. At that moment, it was the first object which he found interesting. On that cauldron, 9 dragons were surprisingly engraved. It had been in Celestial River for hundreds of thousands of years, but had been lost. In the memories Lin Feng received from the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer, there was a story about 10 cauldrons in the continent of the 9 clouds. Within these 10 cauldrons, the cauldron with the 9 dragon heads was ranked 9th. It had been missing for hundreds of thousands of years, and Lin Feng could recognize it thanks to its patterns. However, nobody seemed to know about it. That object was extremely valuable, but nobody knew about it. Lin Feng had almost immediately bid 10,000 for it, but he didn't dare raise it so much because people would have found it suspicious. That old man looked at Lin Feng, and Lin Feng slightly nodded and smiled, looking calm and serene. He tried not to look surprised. Since the young man likes it, I will give it to him for 2,000 purity stones of medium quality, which is already a high price, the old man said, which made the entire crowd nod slowly. Nobody wanted to keep bidding. Moron, joked Bing Yuan, but Lin Feng decided to ignore him. It was a cauldron with 9 dragon heads engraved, and Lin Feng was getting it for 2,000 purity stones of medium quality. Lin Feng didn't care about being called a moron 100 times over. Nobody is bidding anymore? Asked Lan Jiao to the crowd. As expected, nobody spoke. Lan Jiao didn't continue anymore either. After all, she already thought that 2,000 purity stones of medium quality was a lot for that cauldron. It wasn't worth it. Congratulations to the young man for winning the cauldron, said Lan Jiao to Lin Feng while slightly bowing. Her soft and white breasts looked even bigger as she bowed down, which drew everybody's attention. After taking the cauldron with the 9 dragon heads away, an enchanting smile appeared on Lan Jiao's face, and she said, "The last thing is the essence fire of a Xuan-level beast, the 7-tailed fox. I am convinced that I don't need to say much about the price." Essence fire? Lin Feng was stupefied. That was from a beast of the Xuan level. A cultivator of the Xuan Qi layer could use pure Qi, and if they had a fire-based spirit absorbing that essence fire, their attacks would be enhanced. Ferocious beasts were similar to cultivators in the fact that they condensed pure Qi. The 7-tailed fox was a fire beast. Its essence fire was extremely strong. It could absorb pure Qi and condense it into essence fire. It could increase its power that way. When Lan Jiao put it down, the crowd went insane. The essence fire of a 7-tailed fox was a treasure. In terms of ferocious beasts, it was an extremely powerful one. For fire cultivators as well as cultivators who concocted pills, that beast was very tempting. The starting price is 2,000 purity stones of medium quality, said Lan Jiao. It was more expensive than the moon-breaking blade or the ancient cauldron. It was starting at 2,000. Besides, everybody was bidding. Nobody thought that the price was too high. 3,000, 4,000, 10,000. Everybody kept bidding. The price had reached 10,000 in a very short time, and the scariest part was that it didn't stop increasing. 20,000, said an ice-cold voice. At that moment, everybody was stupefied. 20,000, someone had increased the bid from 10,000 straight to 20,000, and that person was Bing Yuan.